Chapter 629. Hey, cousin Yu, why do you have to do this? I've told you that I'm devoted to Tao and don't want me tied down by love affairs. That's why I called off the engagement. Phoenix Rouge sighed softly. Her beautiful eyes were filled with sadness. Although Yu didn't have any spiritual power, he was a man of destiny. Even if he didn't have any cultivation, how could a villain like her kill him? Moreover, she couldn't see through Yu's cultivation, but it didn't mean that he didn't have any cultivation. Today, since he dared to come to the seventh peak and stand in front of her, he must have something to rely on. Of course, if Phoenix Rouge knew that she had more luck than Yu, she wouldn't have stayed on the mountain all these years. Instead, she would have gone out to play. Unfortunately, she didn't know. Therefore, she was already in a panic. Call off the engagement? Yu shook his head. His eyes gradually softened. Rouge, your parents died when you were young. My father raised you in the tribe and treated you like a daughter. Cousin, listen to me. I can understand why you left the tribe, cut off the connection with our tribe, and even verbally called off the engagement. Yu didn't give Phoenix Rouge a chance to speak. His eyes flashed with coldness. Today, not only would he avenge his tribe, but he would also ruin this woman's reputation. Haha, it's good that you understand. Cousin, have you eaten? Do you want me to cook 2 dishes and have a drink with you? Phoenix Rouge laughed embarrassedly. In front of the ancient forest, Ling Zhao's eyes flashed with surprise. What the F***CK? Why did this tone sound so familiar? Moreover, this girl was a little interesting. Logically speaking, this woman who had her engagement annulled was most likely a villain who did not have any luck on her. But why did she have as much luck as 5,000 points? Moreover, she had come to humiliate them. How would she treat them like this? Shouldn't she draw her sword and fight with them? Why did she cook 2 dishes and drink together? But you shouldn't ignore the lives of our people. Yu raised his head and looked at the Phoenix Rouge. Suddenly, a golden paper appeared in his hand. I'm here today to tell you that Phoenix Rouge, it wasn't you who broke off the engagement with me, because you don't have the right to do so. It was Yu, the young lord of the Green Sun tribe, who broke off the engagement with you. As soon as he finished speaking, a surge of spiritual power suddenly surged around Yu, instantly shattering the golden paper into nothingness. Isn't this Yu too good at pretending? She had already broken off the engagement a long time ago, and you're forcing her to break off the engagement again. What's the point? He probably thinks that he has no hope of catching up with Junior Sister Rouge, so he's pretending to be awesome. Yes. The way he looked at Miss Foam just now was also very lustful. On the mountain path, the disciples of the immortal sex and the geniuses of Southern Border immediately mocked him. Even the simple-minded Chu had a look of disdain in his eyes. Miss Foam was so pretty. What bad intentions could she have? Yu's actions were indeed narrow-minded. The secular world is particular about the words of parents and matchmakers. But cultivators like us are free, and our hearts are on the great Tao. Of course, we choose our Tao partners according to our hearts. Who made the rule that an engagement can't be broken off? How pedantic. What a bad habit. F***CK. Phoenix Rouge shouted softly, but the last trace of hesitation in Ling Zhao's eyes disappeared. What a beautiful foreign language. If Phoenix Rouge's previous actions could only be called strange, then this catchphrase would be considered as completely exposing her identity. Ling Zhao really didn't expect to meet a fellow countryman from the distant east in this strange land. Moreover, it seemed that the model of this fellow countryman's transmigration was rather complicated. Cousin, you said that I didn't save her when she was in danger. How'd I do that? Phoenix Rouge sighed softly in her heart. All these years, she had been living a semi-secluded life in the immortal mystic sect and had never heard of the outside world. Originally, she thought that Yu didn't care about her breaking off the engagement. This storm should be considered as over. You want to pretend? I'll let you pretend. You can leave after you're done. But from the meaning of his words, it seemed to contain a great amount of resentment. As expected of me, a villain. It's just that no matter how stable I am and how harmless I am, the punishment of the heavenly Tao is inevitable. Humph. 5 years ago, my Green Sun tribe was massacred by the demon sect. I sent you 10 letters in a row, begging you to help us out on account of our past kindness. But you, a dignified disciple of the immortal mystic sect, the leader of the southern border's righteous path, didn't leave us alone and caused the death of 371 people of my Green Sun tribe. Phoenix Rouge, you're so cruel. At this moment, the killing intent in Qin Yu's eyes was extremely obvious. Obviously, this memory was an inner demon to him. What? Hearing this, Phoenix Rouge's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly. She couldn't help but sigh in her heart. Not to mention 5 years ago. Even now, she didn't check the outside world's letters to avoid implicating karma and causing trouble. But she really didn't expect that even so, she still got into big trouble. At this moment, the thing that Qin Yu hated the most was not the demon sect that massacred his Green Sun tribe, but her ungrateful cousin who didn't help him. If she didn't have the background of the immortal mystic sect, Qin Yu wouldn't hate her so much. But she was the first disciple of the seventh peak and had the backing of an elder of the immortal mystic sect. In Qin Yu's opinion, if he had taken action at that time, the disaster of the Green Sun tribe would have been easily solved. The path of a villain was indeed difficult and dangerous. Every step was dangerous. Was this the so-called misfortune that came from the sky when one was sitting at home? Cousin, listen to me. I was in seclusion at that time. I just came out recently. If you don't believe me, you can ask him. It was impossible for her to fight. Her tribe was destroyed, and her life was miserable. Now that she came out, Qin Yu was most likely going to trample her under his feet. There was no doubt that she was the chosen one. If it wasn't for the mark left on her by her master, she would have turned around and run away. What can I do? Of course, I won't be stupid like the villains in the books. I won't draw my sword and court death because of a disagreement. Don't you know how to turn hostility into friendship? Aren't the chosen ones all kind-hearted? I'll explain it to him. Okay? Senior sister, I didn't come up the mountain 5 years ago. Qin Shan hesitated for a moment and muttered softly. Phoenix Rouge's face froze. She almost slapped her junior brother to death. However, she quickly dismissed this idea. This person seemed to be a person of destiny. So, why not let the two of them fight and see if there would be any changes? Even if her judgment was wrong. After all, the one who died was her fellow Taoist, not her. Qin Yu, what do you want? Phoenix Rouge took a deep breath. Her beautiful eyes were calm. Your life was given to you by the Azure Sun tribe. I still can't forget the look on my father's face when he died. It's been 5 years, and I always wake up in shock. Phoenix Rouge, you sinned. So, I want to have a fair fight with you. A wisp of piercingly cold spiritual aura surged around Qin Yu. Suddenly, a cold wind blew in the forest. The clear sky suddenly turned gloomy. In just a short moment, Qin Yu's aura reached the level of a divine lord. Many of the geniuses on the surrounding mountain paths were stunned when they saw this scene. Wasn't Qin Yu a good-for-nothing? How did he become a peerless genius after disappearing for 5 years? Chapter 630, Divine Overlord Realm. Feng Rouge's beautiful eyes were filled with astonishment. With her current strength, it was not impossible for her to fight against a rank 1 realm expert. But how could a divine overlord be called a divine overlord if he couldn't kill someone of a higher rank? She was only a 3rd ranked divine overlord. Even if she was a 30th ranked divine overlord, she would still be killed by Qin Yu. Actually, it wasn't that Qin Yu couldn't defeat a divine overlord. It was just that the divine overlord realm was too powerful in the early stages. It felt good to fight at a fast pace. But once you reach a certain point, you would lose interest. Do you understand? That was the point. Feng Rouge, today, let's end our relationship and sever our grudges. A black halberd appeared in Qin Yu's hand. The halberd was covered with Tao patterns and spiritual energy. It was an upper-grade Tao artifact. Qin Yu, do you really think I'm afraid of you? But you're not strong enough to be my opponent. Junior brother Qin Shan, go. Feng Rouge snorted coldly. Will of the Way flowed around her body. Coupled with her ethereal and peerless temperament, she had the aura of an expert. However, at this moment, Ling Zhao's lips curled into a smile. Interesting. Looks like this fellow from the same hometown has read a lot of novels. Knowing that the divine overlord realm was hard to deal with, he decided not to. Ling Xiao had some guesses about the origin of Phoenix Rouge's luck. Phoenix Rouge was probably Qing Yu's childhood sweetheart. She was supposed to be the female lead who accompanied him as he grew up, but her soul was taken over by him. In other words, it wasn't Phoenix Rouge's intention to break off the engagement. It was most likely the decision of this fellow from the same hometown. As a result, the scene before his eyes happened due to a free combination of factors. Moreover, from the looks of it, the current Feng Rouge did not seem to know that she also had luck. So, why do you have to blindly change the plot if you have nothing better to do? Transmigrate into someone else's body and accept her setting. F***CK. Senior sister? You. To be honest, Chen Qingshan was a little confused. This was not in line with senior sister's temperament. Logically speaking, with his understanding of senior sister, she was most likely looking for an excuse to run away. But why was he acting out of character today and revealing his fighting spirit? However, if you want to fight, then let's fight. This Qing Yu is indeed arrogant and conceited, and his words are overbearing. Why do you want me to go? Senior sister, don't you know that I'm a piece of trash? What are you afraid of? This is the 7th summit. Master is here. Are you afraid of being killed? Phoenix Rouge frowned. In fact, she wasn't sure what would happen if these two fated people fought. After all, according to her understanding of the plot, there was at most one destiny in each world. Even if there were, most of them were of the opposite sex, and they were all taken to the side of the child of destiny. Of course, no matter what the outcome was, whether Chen Qingshan lived or died had nothing to do with her. In fact, as long as Chen Qingshan was dead, she might be able to break free from the love of that demonic young woman. There were only benefits and no disadvantages for her. Yes, senior sister. Chen Qingshan gritted his teeth and took out his golden rod. This, young master, no matter what grudges you have with my senior sister, I will not allow you to hurt her. Then I'll have to experience the Tao of your immortal mystic sect. Qing Yu smashed out with his halberd, and there seemed to be a divine figure standing above his head. A terrifying momentum gathered on the halberd, as if the world was collapsing. At this moment, there seemed to be divine runes condensing in his eyes. Spiritual wind suddenly whistled in the surrounding heaven and earth, enveloping Qing Yu. The momentum of heaven and earth gathered in one body? This Qing Yu is quite something. Ling Zhao's eyes flashed with surprise. He had seen many children of destiny. However, even the children of destiny who had comprehended the power of Tao laws could not be like Qing Yu, who was accompanied by a celestial phenomenon. Every move he made contained a wisp of the original momentum. This kind of power was somewhat similar to the ancestral symbol in Ling Zhao's soul sea. Interesting. Chen Qingshan stood on the spot in a daze, watching the halberd descend towards him. His face had already turned pale. He had seen this kind of martial arts competition before. However, this Qing Yu clearly intended to smash him to death with a single halberd. Master, save me. Chen Qingshan instinctively raised the golden rod in his hand. He was so scared that his legs were trembling, and he did not even have the strength to escape. Buzz. Strange golden spiritual inscriptions quietly rippled out, containing a wisp of extremely strong, killing intent. In Ling Zhao's soul sea, several fierce treasures once again let out a joyful cry. Even the black halberd in Qing Yu's hand instinctively dispersed its ferocious aura. Boom! However, even so, the black halberd originally weighed 1,000 kilograms, and it was smashed out by Qing Yu with all his strength. Just this brute force alone was not something that Chen Qingshan could contend against. Poochie! A figure flew out in an instant, smashing through several ancient trees before landing heavily on the ground. Ling Xiao narrowed his eyes and spread out his soul consciousness, only to find that Chen Qingshan's appearance was extremely miserable in the smoke-filled area. At this moment, his arms were completely shattered and blood spilled all over the ground. However, Just as Ling Xiao took a step forward, wanting to seize the opportunity to take him away, he discovered that after the golden staff in the young man's hand was soaked in his blood, it began to emit a piercing blood-red light. At the same time, Chen Xingshan's injuries were rapidly healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Ling Xiao's footsteps paused, and he seemed to have a sudden realization. Another heaven's will with a unique treasure? Although he did not know what material the golden rod was made of, it was obvious that the treasure's value might be the origin of Chen Qingshan's luck to be able to regenerate his broken arm so quickly. The reason why he was not in a hurry to make a move was that he wanted to find out what the three heavens' wills in front of him were like. Only by knowing oneself and one's enemy could he take the right medicine. As for whether they would die, Ling Xiao guessed that they would most likely not die, because he would not allow it. Qingyu, how dare you kill my junior brother? What do you think of the dignity of the immortal mystic sect? Phoenix Rouge's angry roar resounded through the entire mountain. At this moment, there was a spiritual light shooting up from her body. She was obviously furious. He should be dead, right? Even she would not be able to resist the power contained in that halberd. Chen Qingshan had not even broken through to the Pong stage. This time, his bones would probably be smashed. However, this scene fell into Ling Xiao's eyes, more or less, and was somewhat amused. If Phoenix Rouge really cared about her junior brother's life, she would not have let him fight Qingyu. Her only purpose was to use this opportunity to pin the crime of looking down on the immortal mystic sect, and then use the entire immortal mystic sect strength to kill this heaven's will. Good scheming, vicious enough. I like it. However, no matter how much Feng Ruge calculated, she never expected that her trash of a junior brother would possess a treasure that could restore his vitality. Therefore, the moment Phoenix Rouge's voice fell, a violent coughing sound came from the ancient forest. Cough, cough, senior sister. I'm not dead yet. Chapter 631. The anger on Phoenix Rouge's face froze when she heard Chen Qingshan's voice. He's still alive. When the dust in the forest cleared, a blood-soaked figure appeared in front of everyone. At this moment, Chen Qingshan's clothes had already been torn to shreds, revealing his sturdy but not bulging muscles. All these years, he had only done two things on the seventh peak. One was to chop down trees, and the other was to test new products for senior sister. That seemed to be the right word. In any case, all kinds of strange mechanisms and pills that senior sister had concocted had to be tested on him. If it wasn't for the fact that he had the heavenly mandate, the grass on his grave would have been at least a meter tall by now. Destined Body is too scary. He's still alive. For some reason, Feng Rouge's face turned even paler. Originally, she had a lot of reservations about the four words destined protagonist, but now it seemed that she had underestimated the terror of these people. However, from this matter, she was even more certain that her little junior brother must also have the body of destiny. Otherwise, it didn't make sense. How could a Xianqing ant survive a full-powered attack from a divine overlord? If it had been any other minor actor, they would probably have been smashed to pieces. Qingyu's face was also filled with surprise, especially the strand of strange ripples that arose when the halberd in his hand smashed onto the golden rod earlier. It even caused him to feel an indescribable feeling of terror at the bottom of his heart. No wonder Phoenix Rouge dared to ask a Xianqing to fight him. It turned out that this young man had a trump card. Phoenix Rouge, he's no match for me. You better fight me. Qingyu pointed his halberd at the girl. The spiritual power at the tip of the halberd formed a vortex. At this moment, the power of heaven and earth gathered on him. Although Chen Qingshan had some tricks up his sleeve, he was only a Xianqing stage cultivator. Moreover, he wanted to defeat Phoenix Rouge. He wanted to use her blood as a sacrifice to the 300 people of the Green Sun tribe. Cough, cough. Qingyu, revenge breeds revenge. You and I are brother and sister. Why are you in such a hurry? How about this? The Tianqi competition is about to start. We can have a fair fight on the fighting stage. Phoenix Rouge sighed softly, looking a little lonely. According to the plot, the destined person would have some feelings for the woman who broke off the engagement. Love begets hate. As for the so-called fair fight, it was nothing more than Phoenix Rouge's stalling tactic. Only by delaying would things change. There were several hundred people participating in the struggle for the heavenly pool. Who knew if he would encounter Qingyu? Furthermore, even if I were to meet him, I would have already surrendered to him in front of everyone. Do you think that you would be able to kill a weak woman like me? If he could avoid fighting, he would try his best not to. The verbal escape technique was the most profound and reliable of all escape techniques. I don't care about the Battle of Tianqi. I came here to kill you. Phoenix Rouge, since you don't want to fight me, then I will fight you. With that, Qingyu did not give the Phoenix Rouge a chance to speak. He took a step forward, followed by his Dharma body. Vast spiritual power rippled, as if the universe was about to be destroyed, and a blinding divine light burst out. The black halberd in Qingyu's hand transformed into 1,000 feet long shadow. The Tao patterns on the halberd flickered, as if a divine dragon had soared into the sky. It fiercely smashed towards the Phoenix Rouge. Phoenix Rouge's face was pale, and there was a look of resentment on her pretty face. She did not expect that after living in seclusion for so long, she still could not escape from being set up as the villain's stepping stone. It was not that she could not withstand this attack, but no matter what kind of trump card she used, her fate would not change at all. After all, she had never heard of any book that said that the destined person would die in the hands of the villain. Sigh, I thought that I could live longer by living in seclusion. I did not expect that I would still be killed in the end. Phoenix Rouge looked miserable. Facing this attack, she could not avoid it, and there was a ray of light around her body. However, just as she was changing her hand seals and the 36 talismans on her body were emitting divine light, she saw a ripple in the space in front of her. Master? Phoenix Rouge's beautiful eyes narrowed, and she finally heaved a sigh of relief. Old thing, you are finally willing to make a move. But wait, it doesn't look like it. She saw a white-robed deity slowly step out from where the space was broken. Although it was only the back of the deity, there was a sense of otherworldly peerlessness. Phoenix Rouge's heart surged for a moment. A hero saving a damsel in distress. But, sigh, you are just a setting in the script. How would I know that this plot is destined to have an ending? But to have a handsome young man accompanying me in death, it is not a waste of time. Buzz. The divine halberd fell from the sky, shattering the blue sky. Pieces of space cracks meandered for 100 miles, and there seemed to be dark clouds above the entire 7th peak. Qingyu held the halberd with both hands and smashed it down with all his might. Flawless divine light rippled, layers upon layers, and each ripple contained enough power to destroy the world. Endless avatars began to rise, and the dazzling divine light blocked everyone's sight. Finally, the halberd fell, and the world fell silent. On the 7th peak, the mountain wind stopped, and there was no sound. Even the birds and beasts in the forest seemed to be frightened by the remaining power, and they did not dare to make a sound. On the ground, cracks spread like a spiderweb. Even the many disciples on the mountain path felt their hearts tremble, and a trickle of blood flowed from the corner of their mouths. Sigh. Phoenix Rouge shook her head and sighed bitterly. Her eyes were filled with sorrow. You are a good person. Although she did not see the appearance of the white-robed young man at that moment, she probably would never see it again. Qingyu's halberd was several times more terrifying than the one that was aimed at Qingshan. This time, there should be no surprises. Otherwise, Feng Rouge would suspect whether Qingyu was the son of destiny or not. Buzz. However, just as everyone's hearts were trembling, a deafening buzzing sound suddenly came from where the smoke and dust filled the air. Subsequently, a vast divine might rippled out and instantly dispersed the smoke and dust. Then, everyone watched in horror as a white-robed figure stood with his hands behind his back, and there seemed to be an aura of immortality around him. He merely extended 2 fingers and easily blocked Qingyu's heaven-piercing halberd. In the sky, Qingyu's face was also a little blank. This should not be. He had used almost all of his strength in that halberd attack to kill Phoenix Rouge. How could it be stopped by 2 fingers? Moreover, judging from the appearance of the white-robed young man, he was about the same age as him. How'd he do it? At this moment, Ling Xiao did not use the divine light to conceal his appearance. His handsome face immediately caused the entire seventh peak to fall into an uproar. Wow, so handsome. That white-robed young man is so manly. What a handsome young man. This young man's cultivation must have surpassed the first level of the divine overlord realm, right? A young divine king? How is that possible? I have never heard of anyone reaching the first level of the divine king realm at such a young age. You are also a divine overlord. Can you withstand that halberd attack? I can't withstand it. On a mountain path, the proud women began to exclaim. The proud men clapped their hands, clearly shocked by the scene before them. But why does this figure look so familiar? But then, someone frowned and murmured in confusion. It's Ling Xiao, the Holy Sun. It's Ling Xiao, the Holy Sun. In the crowd, Qin Chu covered his mouth with both hands and trembled all over. His eyes flashed with intense shock. He looked even more excited than the other proud women beside him. Chapter 632. What? It's actually Holy Sun Ling Xiao? Yes. Apart from the 3 layers of snow, who else in the world is worthy of wearing white? It's the Holy Sun. It's the Holy Sun. He's talking to you, you ugly be***starred. Hurry up and take off your white robe. Are you worthy? I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. Boo-hoo, Holy Sun. I won't dare to do it again. The mountain path was filled with excited shouts and cries. Not to brag, but that halberd strike just now was enough to kill 99% of the prodigies present. However, Holy Sun Ling Xiao only used 2 fingers to stop such a shocking attack, although they had already seen the Holy Sun's unparalleled charm before. But what else could they say? Holy Sun Ling Xiao was awesome. Originally, everyone did not have a good impression of the arrogant Qinyu. Of course, the most important thing was that this guy was really too good at showing off. He even wanted to kill such a beautiful girl like Miss Ru Ge. If not for the fact that his halberd strike just now was too shocking, someone would have rushed up to beat him to death. A piece of trash. Even if you're rising now and pretending to be weak, you're still trash in our eyes. I can't beat you, but our Holy Sun Ling Xiao specializes in dealing with all kinds of pretentious people. I don't think you can leave the 7th peak today. In front of the main hall, Phoenix Rouge's eyes narrowed slightly. He looked at the young man in white who stopped Qin Yu with 2 fingers with a puzzled expression. He suddenly felt a little confused. The Holy Sun of the sacred sect? Just this identity alone was very suitable for the setting of a villain's stepping stone. However, this villain seemed to be a little strong. However, according to the usual routine, the Holy Sun would most likely encounter a slightly stronger villain in the early stages. Moreover, it was the kind of peerless genius who was admired by tens of thousands of people and had monstrous talent. This villain's personality must be indifferent and look down on the world. He would not take the Holy Sun seriously at all. There would be a slight conflict between the 2 of them. Then, the Holy Sun would make a vow to fight sooner or later. The arrogant villain didn't even hear what he said, because there was no need to worry about the words of an ant. Until one day, the 2 of them had a shocking battle. The Son of Heaven turned the tables and became a god, killing the peerless monster that everyone thought was unexcelled in the world. F***CK. Wasn't this villain Gao Chao from Qingyu Immortal Path? Feng Rouge's mind was filled with thoughts, and she quickly analyzed Ling Xiao's identity. However, when a young man in white looked back, the disdain in her eyes instantly froze. Especially the gentleness at the corner of Ling Xiao's mouth. It almost made Feng Rouge burst into tears. Why did his body suddenly go soft? At this moment, Phoenix Rouge finally understood the saying, "Don't be afraid of bad villains, be afraid of handsome villains." As long as the villain was handsome, their worldview would follow their facial features. Even in her previous life, she had seen many of the world's top 10 most handsome men and top 100 male models. But compared to this young man in front of her, what peerless handsome man what glorious appearance! They were all trash. She could no longer find any words to describe the holy son of the sacred sect. In short, she wanted it. Gulp. I'm not gulping because I'm scared. I'm just drooling uncontrollably. To put it simply, I'm greedy. Rouge, are you okay? The gentle voice was like a drop of dew on a branch after the spring rain, gently touching Phoenix Rouge's heart. Not only did Feng Rouge not feel the slightest bit rude to be addressed in such an intimate manner, but she also felt honored. Love at first sight? It was all bullshit. Look at the face. Look at the face. In this day and age, who wasn't a dog for looks? Anyway, I am. If you want to pretend, then pretend. In the blink of an eye, Phoenix Rouge reached out and pinched her thigh hard, suppressing all the fantasies in her heart. She was greedy, but she wanted to live more. Besides, what was the use of being greedy? Her body was destined to not be able to get what she wanted. Wasn't it infuriating to just look, but not be able to get what she wanted? Besides, Qingyu was still here. According to the current situation, she probably wouldn't die today. But at the same time, Qingyu wouldn't die either. If he saw her being greedy and turned to vent his anger on her, wouldn't she be courting death? Young master, I'm fine. Phoenix Rouge shook her head slightly, her tone extremely indifferent. Seeing this, Ling Zhao's smile grew wider. This woman of destiny was very cautious. The reason why he took action was to avoid a direct confrontation between these two people of destiny. Otherwise, once Phoenix Rouge knew that she was also a person of destiny, it was inevitable that she would become arrogant. Besides, Ling Zhao wouldn't let go of this opportunity to be a hero saving a damsel in distress. He needed a reason to kill Qingyu and squander the luck-plundering talisman. As for calling her Rouge, do you think I'm a dog again? Please, use your brain. If I don't anger Qingyu, why would he fight me? I just want to make everything seem logical. TSK, Rouge. Qingyu was in midair, his heart in a mess. Especially the greed that flickered in Feng Rouge's eyes just now. It was like a thorn that pierced into his heart. No wonder she took the initiative to break off the engagement with me. It turns out that this bitch has a better choice. The saint of the sacred sect. 10 years of companionship, childhood sweethearts. He and Phoenix Rouge knew each other since they were young and grew up together. They were like biological siblings. During those years, the Qingyang tribe was at its peak, and he was a famous peerless genius in the entire southern border. A talented man and a beautiful woman. That was how it was. Qingyu originally thought that they would grow up happily, never leave each other, protect their tribe, and protect the world. But in the end, all the good things were destroyed. Although Qingyu had other relationships these years, deep in his heart, he still couldn't forget this young girl who had accompanied him from ignorance to ignorance. Ha ha! Is this why you broke off the engagement? Qingyu put away his halberd and stood in midair, coldly looking down at Phoenix Rouge. Huh? No, it's not. Phoenix Rouge's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly. Just as she was about to explain, Ling Zhao suddenly laughed and said, "So what if I broke off the engagement? Who made the rule that an engagement can't be broken off? This young master is too domineering. Is that so? Then I'd like to see what's so good about the person that Rouge likes." Hearing this, Qingyu smiled faintly, but his eyes were already cold. "Qingyu, we have a deal. You and Holy Son Ling Zhao will fight. No matter who wins or loses, we'll forget about our grudges." Phoenix Rouge's sudden words made Qingyu's indifferent expression collapse instantly. "Do you mean that he represents you? And you still deny it? Good. Phoenix Rouge, since you're so heartless and vain, I'll tell you in front of all the geniuses in the southern border who's the real destiny. So what if he's the holy son of the sacred sect? The moment I step on him, I hope you won't cry and regret it. You're not worthy of me at all." Boom! A terrifying aura rose from Qingyu's body. Vaguely, there seemed to be a divine shadow descending from the void behind him. Heaven and earth fell silent as a sea of spiritual power gathered on Qingyu alone. Chapter 633. Ling Zhao, I admit that you are very powerful. Qingyu stood in the air, and his aura seemed to have merged with heaven and earth. This mysterious feeling made the mocking look in the eyes of the people on the mountain gradually freeze. They had to admit that Qing Yu's current strength was terrifying. Even in the entire southern border, he could definitely be called a monster. However, they had an inexplicable trust in Ling Xiao. Especially now, the saint's face was calm, and there was a hint of peerlessness. Perhaps in the eyes of the saint, the strength of an ant was meaningless. However, the more powerful you are, the more excited I am. I have not met a worthy opponent in a long time, and you will be my first trial. Qing Yu's eyes gradually rippled with a terrifying battle intent. Even the aura on his body gradually rose with this battle intent. One had to admit that the Son of Destiny was tenacious and would become stronger when faced with a strong opponent. If it had been an ordinary person, they might have been scared and run away after being defeated by Ling Xiao with 2 fingers. However, he treated such a setback as a form of training. You are so pretentious that you are about to become invisible. Today, I will use your life to forge my vast path to immortality. Buzz. As soon as Qing Yu finished speaking, a terrifying aura suddenly spread from his body. A spiritual spiral appeared in the sky on the entire 7th peak. It was like an immortal gate that led to another world, and thousands of divine elephants were formed. The moment the spiritual spiral fell, Qing Yu's figure transformed into a gigantic figure that was 1,000 feet tall. Endless Tao intent gathered in his body, and his every move seemed to contain the power of heaven and earth. It was obvious that when facing Ling Xiao, the saint of the sacred sect, Qing Yu's attack was the strongest. A cultivation technique? It doesn't look like one, but it's not a divine body Tao law. Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed, but it was not because of Qing Yu's terrifying talent. No matter how powerful a genius was, he was now like an ant in his eyes. It was just that he had not seen clearly what Qing Yu's golden finger was. Could it be that this guy's elixir sea had a story behind it? Boom! Qing Yu took a step forward, shattering the void beneath his feet. After that, a halberd smashed down from the heavens. It was as if a great mountain had collapsed, as if a divine mountain was descending from the heavens, pressing down on Ling Xiao's head. Between the heavens and the earth, the sound of thunder suddenly resounded, as if it was vibrating beside one's ears. Everyone could only feel the blood in their bodies churning and their spiritual energy fluctuating. There was a faint feeling of suffocation and oppression. Endless will of the great path converged into a sea, and a celestial phenomenon was manifested under the halberd. Within it, there seemed to be a sea of stars sinking, great demons falling, and the sun and moon losing their light. Every wisp of power could be said to be vast and terrifying. Not bad, but you're still too weak. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. Suddenly, Tao patterns appeared outside his body. Tens of thousands of rays of light shot into the sky. Among them, the thunder sun, the divine tree, the ocean, and the raging flames condensed into a seal that slammed down towards the divine halberd. The world annihilation Tao law was a supreme great Tao that transcended the 9 heavens. The intent of nirvana contained within it was something that even Emperor God experts did not dare to fight against. 3,000 great Taos merged into one. Once it was unleashed, all Taos would shatter, and the world would become empty. Only my will is eternal and indestructible. I say, there is light and darkness in this world. Everything is reincarnated at the beginning. The 6 Taos are within my reach. Even the sun and moon are no match for my gaze. Boom! The divine halberd collided with the Tao seal. Instantly, tens of thousands of ripples appeared in the sky. Patches of the void shattered like a mirror. Within 100 miles, the forests were instantly turned into ashes. Even Qin Shu and Phoenix Rouge, who were people of the heavenly mandate, had to release dazzling spiritual light from their bodies at this moment. Only then could they resist the remaining power. Even so, everyone was still pushed back by hundreds of feet. Many disciples even had blood dripping from the corners of their mouths. Was it so difficult to watch a show these days? Was it so easy to be shaken to the point of vomiting blood? Countless figures retreated far away and quickly rushed towards the foot of the mountain. If they did not leave now, they would probably be shaken to death alive later. Are extras like us brainless? Why would we insist on watching until the end after vomiting blood 10 times? Splat. Suddenly, the sound of blood spurting came from the void. Phoenix Rouge's beautiful eyes were gloomy as she stared at the vast and mighty spiritual power. In the next moment, a look of surprise flashed across her face. At this moment, Qing had already retreated by dozens of feet. His face was pale, and even the hand holding the halberd seemed to be trembling slightly. In front of him, Ling Xiao was dressed in white. He stood with his hands behind his back, looking calm and composed. It was as if a divine power in the world could not get close to him at all. Looking down on the world and being otherworldly. Was this the attitude of someone who looked down on the world? Phoenix Rouge sighed softly. A complicated look flashed across her eyes. No matter how strong Ling Xiao was, he was destined to meet his end. His current glory was just a kind of foreshadowing. The higher he stood, the more miserable and satisfying he would be when he was stepped on. What kind of good ending could a villain have? Suddenly, Phoenix Rouge felt like a fox mourning the death of a rabbit. You try to take one of my fingers. Ling Xiao's eyes were clear. Looking at the young man standing in the sky, he stretched out 2 fingers and gently swiped down. Hum! A wisp of clear light appeared leisurely. Thousands of sword intents shot up into the sky, piercing through the sky and messing up the blue sky. Then the entire void was neatly cut open. The sword radiance leisurely slashed down at Qing Yu. Damn it! Qing Yu's expression changed drastically, especially when he felt the terrifying will contained in the sword radiance. His face was completely pale. However, the sword intent was biting cold and as fast as a white horse. He had no chance of dodging it all. He could only bite the bullet and shout angrily, "Desolate heaven, ancient tablet, suppress." A tablet floated in the sky, covered by fog. Thousands of rays of divine light pierced through the clouds, illuminating the sky like a river of stars. At the end of the river of stars, a black stone tablet stood quietly, as if it had existed since ancient times. There was no trace of the great path on it, nor was there any divine light. There was only one kind of ancient that had experienced the mortal world. However, the moment it appeared in the void, Ling Xiao felt a force of heaven and earth pressing down on his head. It was inexplicably heavy. A trump card? Ling Xiao raised his head and looked at the black ancient tablet. There was not the slightest ripple on his face. The Son of Destiny had endless trump cards. At first glance, the grade of this ancient tablet had already surpassed the category of Tao artifacts. However, no matter how powerful a spirit treasure was, it depended on who had it. After all, Qing Yu's strength was only at the first stage of the Divine Lord realm. Regardless of whether it was his divine soul, physical body, or spiritual energy, they were all far inferior to Ling Xiao's. Therefore, when the ancient tablet fell from the sky and suppressed the sword radiance, a strange friction sound suddenly came from the sky. The ancient tablet turned into a mountain, reversing heaven and earth, and with the power of reversing yin and yang, it enveloped the wisp of clear light. However, just as everyone thought that the sword radiance and the divine power had dissipated, a loud sound rang out. Between heaven and earth, a loud sword sound suddenly rang out. Layers of clear light broke through the divine shadow with unparalleled power, cutting through the divine fog and destroying the universe. The immortal ancient sword that seemed to have fallen from the heavens instantly shattered the divine shadow and slashed down at Qing Yu's head. Chapter 634. Hiss! Gasps could be heard from the top of the mountain, especially Phoenix Rouge. The moment she saw the ancient tablet, she had a premonition, a twist, a reversal of the situation. The reason why she taught Qin Qingshan to reserve 30% of his strength at all times was to prevent the person of destiny from having a trump card. These people seemed to be reluctant to use their strongest means until the moment of life and death. They had to wait until they were covered in wounds, their auras were weak, and they were about to die before making a comeback. Wasn't that particularly happy? However, she really didn't expect that the person of destiny's standard trick seemed to have failed this time. That wisp of clear light was like the immortal charm from the depths of the primordial chaos at the beginning of the world. It cleared all obstacles and easily pierced through Qing Yu's figure. Blood splattered, and the strong smell of blood assaulted her face. The golden light in the sky was dazzling and enveloped Qing Yu's body. Phoenix Rouge stood rooted to the ground in a daze. There was nothing else on her pretty face except for a daze. It shouldn't be. Could it be that Qing Yu really wasn't the person of destiny? Or could it be that there weren't so many tricks in this world, and everything was just her imagination? No, impossible. All fantasy worlds had tricks, and they were mostly the same. Which part of the process went wrong? Young master, Ling Xiao. On the mountain path, Qin Chu clenched his fists tightly. As if he had taken medicine, his face was flushed, his body trembled, and his eyes were filled with admiration. The sword cut through everything. Tao artifacts, spiritual treasures, and geniuses. As long as I have the sword in my hand, there is nothing in the world that I can't cut. Lord Ling Xiao, as expected of you, you are the true appearance of a peerless sword immortal in my heart. No, you are the sword, the motivation for me to move forward in this life. The sea of stars that I look up to, the wind that I can't touch, the dream that I can't wake up from. Young master, Chu will work hard. I hope that one day I can stand at the top of the world side by side with you. Beep, the person of destiny, Qin Shu, takes the devil as his role model and has the potential to be a scapegoat. Congratulations to the host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Huh? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows and turned to look at Qin Shu with a smile on his face. He didn't expect that Qin Shu, the little leak, would take the blame for Qing Yu's death instead of receiving the reward for killing him. Hiss, the disciples taught by the 6 demons never played by the rules. I haven't even started yet, and you're already creating opportunities for yourself? Young master, feeling the gentleness in Ling Xiao's eyes, Qin Shu's body trembled as he felt an inexplicable sense of joy. Finally, the young master is looking at me. To the people of the world, perhaps this was just a casual glance. But for me personally, it is a step forward in my relationship with young master. I envy the friendship between my masters. I hope that one day I can find a soulmate who can harmonize with my zither. Looking at all the geniuses of the southern border, only young master Ling Xiao was outstanding and different from the rest. Perhaps he is my comrade on the path to immortality. Bloom, Qin Shu. Only when you're dazzling enough can you match young master's talent. In the battle for the heavenly lake, the world will spread my divine might. Interesting. Ling Xiao's gaze finally landed on the young man who was hit by his sword intent. Logically speaking, no one in the Divine Lord realm should be able to survive this perfect Tao law. But at this moment, there was no sound from the system. Obviously, Qing Yu was still alive. At this moment, Ling Xiao also felt a terrifying aura quietly surging from the golden light. On the 7th peak, Su Yunzi stood at the top of the sky and looked down at the turmoil below. Especially the ancient tablet that Qing Yu used just now, he felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. But it shouldn't be. This divine tablet was the ultimate treasure of the Sea tribe. How could it fall into the hands of a remnant young man? He had heard of the Qingyang tribe. Back then, this tribe was also one of the 8 tribes of southern border. But later, it was said that the leader of the Qingyang tribe, Qing Feng, went deep into the sea and returned with serious injuries. In the end, he was betrayed by his tribe's vassals and fell into decline. He retreated deep into the mountains near the boundless sea. Even the young master of the tribe, Qing Yu, a famous genius in southern border, had his elixir sea destroyed. He was reduced to a useless person and was ridiculed by the world. Do you think it's the end? The chosen one's life was full of difficulties. The more miserable his life was, the stronger his cultivation would be. 5 years later, an overlord of the Sea tribe suddenly came and slaughtered the entire Qingyang tribe. Qingyu's whereabouts were unknown, and the world thought that he was dead. But today, he actually appeared in the immortal mystic sect and caused a stir. His cultivation had even reached the divine lord realm. But Su Yunzi also didn't expect that this young genius had such an ill-fated relationship with his useless eldest disciple. As for Ling Xiao, as the saint of the sacred sect, wasn't it reasonable for him to be strong? Buzz! Suddenly, spiritual light shot up into the sky and turned into a divine pillar. Demonic chi swept across the entire seventh peak and fog rose. Phoenix Rouge's eyes narrowed and her jade-like hands clenched tightly. She seemed to be extremely anxious. I knew it. How could the Chosen One die so easily? Gao Chao kept on using his trump cards and turned the tables around. In the end, he went through all the difficulties and killed the villains to achieve supreme fame. It couldn't be wrong. Qingyu, the real Chosen One. Lord Ling Xiao, you're probably going to die now. Sigh, what a pity for your peerless face. Boom, boom. Suddenly, heavy footsteps came from the endless fog. It was as if a primordial demon had descended, causing cracks to appear on the entire mountain. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows, but his eyes were still calm. Was this Qingyu's real cheat? The divine soul of a demon? Ling Xiao had met this model at the beginning. But he was just an ant in the lower world at that time, and his cheat was only from 9 underworld in the Shenzhou state. But now, the demonic chi on Qingyu's body was obviously much more terrifying. Could it be that the power of heaven and earth and the method of gathering spiritual energy was done by this demon? Boom! In the end, when the fog dissipated, a 100-foot demon figure stood in the sky, emitting a dazzling golden light. It was a crimson gold divine crocodile covered in scales. On its huge head, 2 blood-red eyes flashed fiercely as it looked down at Ling Xiao. Divine power spread around its body, and it had a barbaric and domineering aura. Ancient heavenly crocodile. Su Yunzi's figure descended from the sky and stood in front of Ling Xiao, a look of shock on his old face. The heavenly crocodile demon clan was the absolute overlord of the endless sea in ancient times. But later, during the great war between the immortals and demons, the heavenly crocodile demon clan was destroyed in the long river of history. To the immortals and demons, the heavenly crocodile demon clan was not worth mentioning. But to the cultivators of the Shenzhou state, this ancient overlord clan was supreme. Ancient heavenly crocodile, demon soul. Ling Xiao raised his head and looked at the 100-foot demon figure with a look of surprise in his eyes. He could see that under the demon figure, Qingyu's face was gloomy and half of his body had been chopped into pieces. But there was no trace of defeat on his face. Even his Dao heart did not show any signs of collapse. It was obvious that this little leak was very confident in his trump card. What a joke. If this was not a celestial mystic sect, Ling Xiao could make him reincarnate on the spot with a thought. Chapter 635. Saint. This demon's soul belongs to an ancient race. Why don't I deal with it? Su Yunzi's expression was solemn. Although Qing Yu's aura had not surpassed the divine overlord realm, it had reached the 9th stage. Although Ling Xiao was the saint, he did not have a high chance of winning against this soul. He should not interfere in a battle between the younger generation. However, if the saint died in his immortal mystic sect, would the saint not uproot this sect? Elder, are you looking down on me? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly, a gentle look on his face. However, in Phoenix Rouge's eyes, this scene was somewhat ignorant and childish. Saint Ling Xiao, you are very strong. However, as long as you are in this script, your fate is destined. Isn't it good to be alive? Do villains have to be arrogant, conceited, and endlessly courting death? Of course, she was too lazy to say more. After all, these natives would not understand her identity as a transmigrator. Saint, it's just a remnant soul. Ling Xiao shook his head. Suddenly, a pitch-black ancient sword appeared in his hand. A trace of coldness silently appeared between heaven and earth. Inexplicably, Su Yunzi felt a chill in his heart. How could it be? He was a sixth-stage divine emperor. How could he be frightened by a sword? Sword? On the mountain path, Qin Shu was stunned and felt a trace of doubt. How could a peerless sword cultivator use a sword? Wait, Lord Ling Xiao was looking down on Qin Yu. Yes, that must be it. He did not care about using a sword to kill him. Qin Yu, quickly deal with that young man. With your current strength, you can't withstand my saint's soul. A low voice came from Qin Yu's soul sea. The latter only nodded calmly and stared at Ling Xiao. To be honest, he did not expect that he would be forced into such a situation by someone of the same generation as him. However, since he had exposed his biggest trump card, the holy son of the sacred sect and the southern border monster were all useless. They were not worth mentioning. He didn't care about the fortune of the heavenly lake. After all, he had that divine item. Even if he didn't cultivate, his cultivation level would increase on its own. However, now that the heavenly crocodile demon soul had appeared, there was probably no place for him in the southern border. Fortunately, Shur had given him 2 treasures, one of which could teleport. Calculating the time, it was almost time for him to meet Shur. The Green Sun tribe had been destroyed, but with the remnant soul of the heavenly crocodile and Shur, it was not impossible for him to venture into the endless sea realm. Boom! With that thought in mind, Qin Yu did not waste any more time. He lifted his foot and stomped down on Ling Xiao. Boundless divine might covered the heavens and the earth as demonic energy swept across the entire mountain peak. At this moment, Helian Shan and the other immortal profounders stood in the sky with their hands behind their backs, and their eyes contained a wisp of astonishment. The heavenly crocodile clan? Helian Shan and the others had naturally heard of this overlord of the sea region. It was just that everyone had never imagined that after 1,000 years, they would actually be able to see this clan in the southern territory. In the era of great battles, there were many monstrous geniuses. Regardless of whether it was Ling Xiao or Qin Yu, in his eyes, they had the potential to become the main characters of this world. However, this world could be said to be vast and boundless, but it could also be said to be controlled by one person. In the end, there would only be one master. Helian Shan let out a soft sigh. His gaze towards Ling Xiao and the other man became even more complicated. The reappearance of the heavenly crocodile demon soul would definitely cause a commotion among the sea tribe. However, he could not kill this person. None of the elders of the immortal mystic sect could kill him. Although the southern border was currently under the control of the Saint sect, the sea tribe had never taken the divine master seriously. Once the immortal mystic sect killed Qin Yu, it would definitely attract the revenge of the heavenly crocodile demon soul. Therefore, not only would he not kill Qin Yu, but he would also save his life at the crucial moment. Demonic clouds gathered in the sky. The demonic shadow that Qin Yu had transformed into descended from the sky, and there seemed to be countless strange demonic patterns on it. Before it landed, the entire 7th peak was crushed. Vast power stacked on top of each other. Above Ling Xiao's head, the void shattered and turned into endless darkness. However, at this moment, his expression was still calm. With a single thought, divine light seemed to light up around him. Then, everyone was dumbfounded when they saw ancient divine trees rising from the ground. In the blink of an eye, they became 100 jong tall. They were overflowing with vitality and filled with immortal energy. They were like divine pillars from the 9 heavens that wanted to hold up the blue sky. Qin Yu's expression froze. His foot that was about to land suddenly could not move any further. How is this possible? What kind of power is this? To be honest, at this moment, Qin Yu was more or less terrified. He had only used the remnant soul of the heavenly crocodile once. Even if there was only a wisp of demonic power left in the ancient overlord clan, it was still not something that ordinary experts could contend against. Last time, when he was at the end of his rope, he used this power to kill a 2nd-grade divine king realm expert of the sea tribe. However, at this moment, in front of Ling Xiao, he suddenly felt that he was pitifully weak. Qin Yu, an expert from the celestial mystic sect, has arrived. Why don't you leave first? Where there is life, there is hope. As long as you can find the ancient ruins of the heavenly crocodile tribe and obtain my inheritance, no one in this world will be your match. The voice of the ancient heavenly crocodile suddenly came from Qing Yu's soul sea. A look of resentment and unwillingness flashed across his face. Ling Xiao, you and I will fight in the end. At that time, I will trample on you and become the most powerful person in the world. However, just as Qing Yu was about to withdraw his foot and leave, he saw Ling Xiao's figure suddenly rise into the air and stand in front of him. Compared to the demonic figure that was 100 zhang tall, Ling Xiao's body was really small and pitiful. However, at this moment, inexplicably, Qing Yu felt a chill rising from the bottom of his heart. Buzz! Before he could use his secret treasure to teleport, the ancient black saber in the young man's hand suddenly shone with thousands of rays of light. Then, in front of everyone's dumbfounded eyes, the saber slashed down horizontally. Boom! Above the void, a divine light shone brightly and the sound of Tao lingered. A terrifying power erupted, turning into a halo of light that swept out in all directions. The space where the black saber fell instantly shattered, and 100 zhang wide abyss was torn open. Rays of light shot into the sky, and countless Tao inscriptions evolved into strange phenomena. Everyone saw that there seemed to be an immortal figure bowing below Ling Xiao. Gods and Buddhas had fallen, and the true form of a mystical realm was faintly revealed. However, there was no life in it. It was more like a dead zone. Between heaven and earth, there was a loud and clear sound of scriptures. With one slash, immortals and demons fell. Gods and Buddhas descended to deliver the souls of the dead. The saber light was like a primordial light that could destroy the world. It pierced through the blue sky, shattered the blue sea, and pierced through the reincarnation cycle. Finally, it slashed down. A blood-curdling scream resounded before it came to an abrupt end. The demonic figure that was 100 zhang tall trembled slightly for a moment and then shattered into nothingness. The dazzling brilliance filled the sky, and it was blinding. The demonic aura that was like an ocean surged and turned into clouds, drowning Ling Xiao and Qing Yu's figures in an instant. The entire seventh peak fell into an eerie silence. Everyone looked at the demonic cloud in the sky with a hint of fear and shock in their eyes. Is it over? Chapter 636. That's impossible, impossible. That Qing Yu must have run away at the last moment. On the mountain peak, Phoenix Rouge clenched her fists tightly. Her pretty face was filled with horror, as if she had seen a ghost in broad daylight. The Chosen One had used his trump card and was killed by the villain. Was this reasonable? Although Phoenix Rouge did not sense Qing Yu's aura at the moment, but she guessed that the Chosen One had most likely run away before he died. Every dog has its day. Don't bully a poor young man. Without suppression, how could he turn the tables around? F***CK, Phoenix Rouge did not read many books, and most of them were unintentionally clicked open. So she probably did not expect that among the thousands of tricks, there was something called a villain's story. Senior sister, Holy Sun Ling Xiao, is so powerful. Qin Qingshan stood beside Phoenix Rouge. His simple and honest face was also filled with horror. What's the use of being powerful? He'll be trampled to death eventually. Phoenix Rouge shook her head, but the moment she finished speaking, she saw a black shadow suddenly fall from the sky. But when she saw the black shadow's appearance, her pretty face almost instantly froze. F***CK. It was actually Qing Yu. No, it should be Qing Yu's corpse. At this moment, there was no sign of life on his body. Even his danci seemed to have been cut open by a sharp knife, revealing a bloody hole. He was clearly dead. At this moment, Phoenix Rouge's body and mind trembled. Her eyes turned black, as she almost fainted on the ground. It shouldn't be. The plot should not be like this. How could Qing Yu die? How could the Chosen One die so easily in the hands of villain? Beep. Congratulations to the host for successfully using the luck plundering talisman. Beep. Congratulations to the host for killing the Chosen One. Additional rewards. Destiny Forging value 2%. 1 chance to perfect the Tao Law. God-slaying battle array, 7th grade battle array. Marrow cleansing pill, 7th grade spirit pill. Ling Zhao's expression was calm as he looked down at the ancient stone talisman in his hand. He seemed to be pondering in his heart. This stone talisman was dug out from the Qingyu Elixir Sea. It looked ordinary, but it had a unique, immortal charm. Obviously, this should be the reason why he could merge with the heavens and earth and carry a strand of the power of the heavens and earth. Moreover, Ling Xiao could feel that the remnant soul of the heavenly crocodile was hidden in the stone talisman. Interesting. Ling Xiao smiled and put the stone talisman into his interspatial ring. Then he stepped out and appeared on the peak of the mountain. The 7th summit was still immersed in shock. Even Su Yunzi's eyes flickered with a wisp of dense surprise. Even if the ancient heavenly crocodile was only left with a wisp of remnant soul, its ferocious might was not something that ordinary divine king experts could contend against. However, Saint Sun Ling Xiao had only used one saber move, an ordinary saber move, to slash that demonic shadow into nothingness. Saint Sun of the sacred sect, as expected of you, invincible in the world. Just based on this combat strength, no one in the younger generation of the Shengzhou race should be a match for you, right? How can this be? How can this be? Is this the legendary appearance that reverses the heavens' fate? Phoenix Rouge's expression was perplexed, and the persistence in her heart showed signs of crumbling. Why do you think I've been hiding in the immortal mystic mountain for 10 years? I have the heavenly poison sacred body, but I still have to test if the water I drink is poisonous. I'm just afraid that this villain setting will inexplicably and unexpectedly die. However, everything she saw today seemed to have completely overturned her understanding. Whether it was the order of Qing Yu's moves, the hidden trump cards, or his background, they were all undoubtedly destined. And Ling Xiao was conceited and arrogant. He was born at the peak of the world, and because of a woman, he had a conflict with the son of destiny. No matter how she looked at it, he seemed like a little villain. But why was there something wrong with the plot? Could it be that even though Ling Xiao looked like a villain, he was actually a man of destiny? In this world, there was not only one destined in the traditional sense. Phoenix Rouge had already deduced this from Chen Qingshan. So, could Ling Xiao be a type of unknown destiny that she did not understand? In the momentum of a great battle, monstrous geniuses would appear in large numbers. What was the so-called great battle for? Of course, it was the destiny of the world. In the end, one would become the king and establish the identity of the son of destiny. At this moment, Phoenix Rouge seemed to have understood something. This Ling Xiao is really bad, cruel, and so damn handsome. I didn't mean to say something wrong. I just wanted to mua, Miss Rouge, what's wrong? Until a gentle voice sounded in front of her. The dazed expression on Phoenix Rouge's face dissipated, especially the handsome and otherworldly face in front of her right now. It caused a ripple in her heart. No matter what Ling Zhao's identity was, she was still a villain. There was no doubt that she was set up as a villain, and her constitution was there for all to see. So, once she was exposed, the son of the sacred sect would definitely kill her on behalf of the world. After all, Phoenix Rouge had read in the ancient books that there was a sky poison woman in the history of the Shengzhou state. Although she did not cause chaos in the world, her ending was quite tragic. In other words, once such a constitution appeared in the world, no one would care about her temperament or whether she was evil. They would all kill her just in case. Now that she had crossed paths with Ling Xiao, there was karma. She was afraid that if she got involved, she would not have a good ending. What are you waiting for? Retreat. Thank you for today, young master. I still have matters to attend to, so I will go back first. With that, Phoenix Rouge suppressed the greed in her heart. She did not even dare to look at Ling Xiao and turn to leave. Miss Rouge, I helped you kill your enemy. Aren't you going to invite me in? Seeing this, Ling Xiao's expression was gentle, and a celestial aura circulated around him, giving people a feeling of bathing in the spring breeze. Phoenix Rouge's footsteps paused, and her pretty face inexplicably blushed. However, in the next instant, she was resentful and despised herself. Phoenix Rouge, oh Phoenix Rouge, is this all you can do? You can't control yourself when you see the peerless handsome young master? Is there nothing else in your head except for greed? You are a villain. You have to stay true to your heart and not be affected by karma to live a long life. Of course, if it were not for Phoenix Rouge's special constitution, she would not be able to eat him no matter how greedy she was. Wait a minute. Who said that Ling Xiao was definitely the son of destiny? Also, maybe this world had a special setting, and the son of destiny could be killed? Why not give it a try? And satisfy her cravings? Haha, sit, of course I want to sit. Young master, please. Phoenix Rouge glanced at Su Yunzi and finally walked towards her bedroom with Ling Xiao. On the mountain path, everyone looked at the cold Qing Yu with a hint of mockery in their eyes. Who told you to show off in front of the holy sun Ling Xiao? Now you're dead. Only Qin Chu clenched his fists with a devout expression. This was the true monster of the Shengzhou state. Even though Qing Yu's combat strength was terrifying and he used all his trump cards, he was still no match for the young master's saber. In fact, from beginning to end, the young master had never used his true trump card, a peerless swordsman killing with a saber. How proud was that? In Qin Chu's opinion, Qin Yu was not worthy of a young master's sword. Lord Ling Xiao, I hope that one day I can experience your true swordsmanship. I'm not trying to provoke you. I just want to have an exchange of swordsmanship with you. Qin Chu sighed softly and turned to walk down the mountain. Originally, he didn't really care about the fortune in the heavenly lake. Grandmaster said that he was only here to gain experience and could not use the demonic techniques he cultivated unless he had no choice. But now, for some inexplicable reason, he was eager to fight the South Border Heavenly Legends. He wanted to fight without holding back. Crush. Sorry, I'm really not trying to show off. I just want Lord Ling Xiao to see me, face me, and acknowledge me. Chapter 637. Master, what's wrong with senior sister? In front of the main hall, Chun Xingshan looked at the two figures that were gradually disappearing with a trace of surprise in his eyes. With his understanding of Phoenix Rouge, he had never seen her reveal such a shy and curious expression. Could it be that senior sister had fallen in love with Holy Sun Ling Xiao? Oh, that's normal. Lord Ling Xiao was incomparably handsome, and his cultivation was even more terrifying. Among the 800 disciples of the immortal mystic sect, Chen Xingshan had never seen someone with such a natural Tao aura like the young master. Especially the young master's indifference, as if he was looking down on all the enemies in the world. In senior sister's words, the wind of pretentiousness was always with him. Although Chun Xingshan did not know what this sentence meant, he just felt that the young master was different from the world and had an invincible aura. I'm afraid your senior sister has thought it through. Su Yunzi's expression did not change, but there was some worry in his eyes. Logically speaking, Ling Xiao, the Holy Sun, was a good match. However, Rouge had a strange personality and specialized in the Tao of poison. He was afraid, forget it. No one could be sure about feelings. Perhaps this Holy Sun was not as pedantic as the people of the sacred sect. In a secluded courtyard at the back of the seventh peak, Ling Xiao looked at the herb field in front of him with a strange expression and a playful look in his eyes. Most of the herbs in this herb field were rare spirit herbs and spirit fruits. This was not surprising. However, there was a black bamboo beside this herb field. It was full of holes and connected to a mud jar. The mud jar was about 10 feet long, and there were several spirit fish and a green lotus inside. Beside the mud jar was a mulberry tree with a crown like an umbrella. Spirit silkworms were crawling on it. Not bad, my song. This arrangement could not be so unique if one had not watched the Agriculture Channel for 5 years. If this was a live broadcast, it would be 80% popular. The script would be my secluded life is self-made, as expected of a transmigration model. I think you're very good at housekeeping. I heard that you're good at housekeeping. Coincidentally, I have a realm and need a nanny. Young master, Phoenix Rouge looked back and coincidentally saw the surprise in Ling Xiao's eyes. The corner of his mouth immediately raised into a beautiful arc. Miss Rouge is really clever. Ling Xiao sighed softly. There seemed to be a complicated look on his face. She was a woman of destiny who didn't know her own destiny and knew some of the tricks in novels. What did she care about the most after staying in the immortal mystic sect for 10 years? Of course, it was his own life. If that's the case, Miss Rouge, if I expose your poisonous body, do you think you'll be shunned by the world? But don't be afraid. I, Ling Xiao, am willing to go against the common people for you. Give her a good impression, stimulate her, and then force her into a dead end. Then, all he needed to do was to find an opportunity to make her understand that being in his arms, she would feel comfortable and peaceful. At that time, would there be any need to worry about the girls not trembling? You think you're out of the story, and I'm just an ordinary character in the story? Childish. Against me, you, Phoenix Rouge, are nothing more than an ant on the second floor. Young master, Phoenix Rouge's beautiful eyes narrowed. Especially the look in Ling Xiao's eyes. She felt her heart skip a beat. Wasn't this too much of a coincidence? I want to seduce you. I haven't even seduced you, and you've already taken the bait? This damn charm of mine is indeed my golden finger. The heavenly poison sacred body is just to prove my villainous setting. Haha, why don't you take off your veil and face me frankly? Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled bitterly. He seemed to be disappointed, but also a little expectant. Phoenix Rouge just smiled and nodded. She raised her hand and took off the veil on her face, revealing her beautiful face. Miss, you are indeed a peerless beauty. Ling Xiao sighed softly. Phoenix Rouge replied with a charming look in her eyes. The saint is the one who is truly unparalleled in the world. In my opinion, the saint killed Qing Yu just now, which is a sign of destiny. I'm afraid that in less than 10 years, the saint will lead the Shengzhou. 10 years. Ling Xiao frowned and sneered in his heart. My fellow countrymen, you really look down on me. If I take 10 years to conquer the Shengzhou, I'm afraid the readers will kill me before the heavenly Tao does. Miss Rouge, you must be joking. Even without me, Qing Yu is no match for you. Ling Xiao was not joking when he said this. Phoenix Rouge was a third-grade divine marquis and had the heavenly poison sacred body. Her luck was even more terrifying than Qing Yu's. It was impossible for the latter to kill her. In this era of great battles, there were many monsters. If Phoenix Rouge had not transmigrated, she would have been Qing Yu's childhood sweetheart and the person who accompanied him to the top of the world. Such a woman was always much more terrifying than the Son of Destiny. However, her soul had transmigrated here and changed the relationship between the two, resulting in today's farce. However, it was also because Phoenix Rouge thought she knew the plot that Ling Xiao took advantage of it. As for the plot, it was up to the author to write whatever he wanted. It was unreliable. The thing that really determined a person's fate was their luck. Phoenix Rouge narrowed her eyes and looked at Ling Xiao's dark and deep eyes. To be honest, Phoenix Rouge felt uneasy, as if she had been seen through. But how could it be? You must be joking, chosen one. I'm not good at learning, and my cultivation is shallow. I only know some escape techniques and alchemy. How can I be Qing Yu's match? Feng Rugul lowered her eyebrows and smiled sweetly. She did have the gentleness of a pretty girl from a humble family, but her gaze towards Ling Xiao was filled with awe and fascination. Men were the same everywhere. Didn't they like the feeling of being worshipped by women? Of course, this kind of worship could not be too direct or it would be too cheap. It had to be subtle, shy, and casual. Only then could it arouse his interest. Chosen one, you are my savior. Oh, in that case, how would you like to repay me, Miss Rouge? Ling Xiao's eyes flashed with a hint of greed, which made Phoenix Rouge even more embarrassed. However, she sneered her heart. Man. Chosen one, how would you like me to repay you? How about giving yourself to me? Ling Xiao looked playful. Phoenix Rouge was stunned for a moment before she covered her mouth and laughed. Chosen one, you're joking again. She did not expect Ling Xiao to be so bold and direct. After all, This was a fantasy world. Most of the righteous geniuses were hypocritical. They would use at least 300 to 500 chapters to woo a girl. Phoenix Rouge had never seen such a direct method. However, the more it was like this, the more she felt that Ling Xiao was strange and interesting. For some reason, Feng Rouge wanted to know more about this holy son of the sacred sect and find out what kind of secrets he was hiding. Look at me. Do I look like I am joking? Ling Xiao shook his head and suddenly reached out to touch Phoenix Rouge's cheek. Chosen one, you might die. Phoenix Rouge's expression changed. She looked panicked and helpless. However, there was a glimmer of tears at the corner of her mouth. Then, she let Ling Xiao's slender and fair hands fall on her. Her poison body was a taboo. However, after 10 years of research and countless experiments on the demon beasts in the mountains, she finally realized something. As long as she suppressed the poison with her spiritual energy and carefully controlled the dosage, the divine overlord would not die immediately. No matter if Ling Xiao was the chosen one or a villain, she only needed to poison him once a day and control the timing to be on the day of the Heavenly Lake contest. At that time, if he was killed on the fighting stage, everyone would be happy. After all, she had severed the karma and enjoyed it. What was there to be dissatisfied with? If Ling Xiao did not die, then no one would care if she poisoned him. After all, he was the one who touched her first. However, if that was the case, she would have to find another way to sever the karma. Thinking of this, Phoenix Rouge's face lit up with a shy smile. Chosen one, Ling Xiao, it's time to eat the poison. Chapter 638. Miss Rouge. Ling Xiao caressed Feng Rouge's messy hair and tucked it behind her ear. A gentle smile appeared on his face. The heavenly poison, sacred constitution, is indeed terrifying and rare. But who am I? The primordial sky demon. What kind of poison in this world can poison me? However, Ling Xiao's smile deepened as he looked at the peerless beauty right in front of him. This heavenly poison lady didn't stop me from touching her body. She's scheming. Phoenix Rouge's delicate body trembled, especially when she felt a wisp of warmth beside her ear, which caused ripples in her heart for no reason. That kind of limp and numb feeling is really captivating. But Ling Xiao's hands touched her lightly, and then he moved to sit on a bamboo chair in the courtyard. That's it. Feng Rouge's expression froze, and she felt a sense of loss. She stood there blankly for a long time before she glared hatefully at Ling Xiao. I was ready to take off my stockings and exchange saliva with you. And you're done just like that? Holy Son Ling Xiao, you're so short. I haven't even finished brewing my emotions, and you're done? If Phoenix Rouge wasn't worried that Ling Xiao would kill her for being too proactive, she would definitely make him crawl down the mountain today. No, she would make him foam at the mouth and collapse on the 7th peak. Miss Rouge, what did you say? Ling Xiao pretended to look at Phoenix Rouge in confusion, but deep down, he was more and more interested in her. In the past, no matter how talented or strong the Lady of Destiny was, they were just characters in a story. They couldn't escape his control and weren't too scheming. However, Phoenix Rouge was different. This transmigrated girl had great providence and knew the plot of a typical story. Now that she dared to scheme against him, she probably wanted to take the initiative and cut off the karma before her poison body was exposed and jump out of the story. Unfortunately, she met a real transmigrated cheat. Oh, nothing. Holy Son, have some tea. Phoenix Rouge had already regained his composure. He picked up the teapot on the table and poured Ling Xiao a cup. The Holy Son is from the Central Border. During her 10 years in the Immortal Sect, let alone leaving the mountain, she didn't even know what happened within the sect. Ling Xiao was the only stranger she had interacted with all these years that she didn't dislike. I was scheming to save my life, but I didn't say that I was annoyed with him, right? Yes. Ling Xiao lowered his head and sipped his tea with an indifferent expression. Saint, can you tell me more about yourself? How did you become the holy son of the sacred cult at such a young age? And how did you cultivate to such a realm? At this moment, Phoenix Rouge had transformed into a fangirl. She was beating around the bush, trying to find out if Ling Zhao's identity was a destiny or a villain. There's nothing much to say. It's nothing more than killing along the way and training between life and death. In fact, my talent isn't outstanding. I always have to work harder than others. Ling Zhao sighed softly. His temperament was proud and indifferent. I always believed that the river flows east for 30 years and the river flows west for 30 years. The glory you see now is the training from the ridicule in the past. Phoenix Rouge's beautiful eyes trembled. It's coming, it's coming. What a standard oath of destiny. It turned out that Ling Zhao was a person of destiny who was about to swim to the west of the river. The powerful background and terrifying cultivation she saw were all the gains after suppressing it. That's right. If there was more than one person of destiny in this chaotic world, perhaps only the person of destiny could kill the person of destiny. In other words, these people all had destiny and were protected by the heavenly Tao. In the era of great battles, there were indeed many monsters. But in the end, there's only one person who truly stood at the peak of the world and controlled the order of the world. When people of destiny fought each other, it was a competition of destiny. But even if it was a person of destiny with low destiny, a villain like her wouldn't be able to kill him. In that case, her innate heavenly poison might not be able to kill this holy son. Who knew if he had a treasure that just happened to be able to restrain this poison? Miss Rouge, what's wrong with you? Ling Zhao frowned and pretended to look at the dazed girl in front of him in surprise. It was obvious that this woman of destiny had already recognized his identity as a person of destiny. Perhaps she had already summed up a complete plot based on her rich experience from her previous life. Nothing. So the Chosen has such a complicated path to immortality. I thought you were born to stand at the peak of Shenzhou. Phoenix Rouge smiled bitterly and poured Ling Zhao a cup of tea. Now it seems that Rouge is lazy. She only knows how to plant flowers and refine medicine all day long. The Chosen is indeed a role model for our generation. If the Chosen is free, you can often come to the seventh peak. I have many questions about cultivation that I would like to ask the Chosen. Miss Rouge, if you don't mind, you can just call me by my name. The Chosen is too distant. Ling Zhao nodded and drank the tea in his cup with a faint smile. Lord Ling Zhao, you must have killed many demons, right? Phoenix Rouge smiled sweetly, as if she had received a great honor. However, the coldness in her eyes didn't diminish in the slightest. That's right. Miss Rouge, your temperament is good, but you're a little cowardly. When cultivators of our generation see demons, regardless of their identity, we must kill them at all costs. Even if it's someone we love, we can't hesitate at all. The next time you see someone like Qingyu, remember, kill them at all costs. Ling Zhao's expression was gentle, but his words made Phoenix Rouge's heart turn even colder. As expected, this holy sect is really righteous. If he knows about my poisoned body, he will definitely kill me. Miss Rouge, if there's nothing else, I'll return to the immortal mystic sect first and discuss today's matter with Sect Master Hellion. The appearance of the heavenly crocodile's remnant soul is not a good sign for the human race of the southern border. If I'm free tomorrow, I'll come and disturb you again. With that, Ling Zhao took a deep look at Phoenix Rouge and turned to leave. The trap had been set. No matter what Phoenix Rouge chose, she was already in Ling Zhao's plot and couldn't escape. It wasn't until the young man's figure disappeared that the smile on Phoenix Rouge's face froze. Her beautiful eyes were filled with killing intent. It seemed that no matter how much she avoided the world, this disaster would still come knocking on her door. Chosen Ling Zhao, he controlled the order of the Shenzhou and took it as his responsibility to kill demons. He was born to be a mortal enemy of demons. Didn't you see that Qingyu only had a demon soul, but even his Dan C was cut off by him? The harmony between the two of them was only because Phoenix Rouge's poisonous body hadn't been exposed. But suppressing the poisonous body itself was a very troublesome matter, and Ling Zhao's appearance was too coincidental. According to Phoenix Rouge's understanding, a chosen one would usually cause a bloodbath wherever he went. And most importantly, now that she had a karmic connection with him, The next plot would most likely be Phoenix Rouge. I didn't expect you to be born with a poisonous body. Although I like you a little, for the sake of the world and the justice of the world, I have no other choice. How many evil demon girls who were fancied by the Chosen One had a good ending? Even if Ling Xiao fell in love and didn't kill her, how would she know that the divine master of the sacred sect behind him wouldn't kill her to end this ill-fated relationship? Therefore, in order to avoid being killed, Phoenix Rouge decided to try to kill this Chosen One of the sacred sect. Since the Chosen One could kill the Chosen One, she wondered if her junior brother's luck could shake this Chosen One. Thousand Ghost Mountain? Little Witch? CIO. Phoenix Rouge's eyes flashed with gloominess. Although she didn't want to be involved in karma, it seemed that some disasters were unavoidable. Junior brother, I don't want to harm you. It's just that you can't let me die. The evil demon girl came for love and died in the Chosen One's hands. The ordinary disciple of the immortal mystic sect woke up and avenged his lover. This plot was logical and wouldn't attract any suspicion. Of course, even if the story didn't go according to Phoenix Rouge's plan, the more chaotic the situation was, the more chances she would have. As for a piece of trash like Chun Qing Shan, the secrets on his body were always earth-shattering. But she didn't know who would be the real main character of this world between him and Ling Xiao. Throughout history, there were countless talented people. But in an era, there could only be one king. The most important thing now was to find out the identity of that misty and invite her into the game. With the mark left by her master, she couldn't get out of the immortal mystic sect, but my golden finger is the divine face. Wouldn't everything be clear if I find a few bootlickers to go down the mountain and ask around? Chapter 639. On the peak of the immortal mystic mountain, clouds floated, spiritual birds flew, and auspicious clouds drifted. All kinds of spiritual aura gathered on the mountain, giving it an ethereal feeling. At this moment, in the back hall of the main peak of the immortal sect, Ling Xiao looked at the wisp of green, poisonous gas on his fingertip with a faint smile. The sky poison was known as the poison without an antidote. However, to Ling Xiao, such a potent poison was of no threat at all. The sky demon was feared by the nine heavens. If he couldn't even resist the sky poison, wouldn't he be letting down the intolerable setting? Therefore, from the beginning, the Phoenix Rouge had been defeated. The four heavens' wills appeared on the immortal mountain. The trip to the southern border had just begun, but it was already a little exciting. Ling Xiao waved his hand and appeared in the realm. He looked at the ancient stone talisman in his hand with bright eyes. From Qing Yu's memory, he already knew that this ancient talisman that contained the remnant soul of the heavenly crocodile was the former's trump card. This strange stone talisman contained a wisp of the so-called celestial source. When placed in the elixir sea, it could absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to change one's physique and cultivate. It was said that this talisman was a treasure that the immortals had given to an ancestor of the heavenly crocodile clan. Now it seemed that the ancient god clan valued the heavenly crocodile clan very much. After all, even the Yi clan ancestor had never received such kindness from the immortals. That was why he wanted to transform into the sky demon and conquer the nine heavens. However, this talisman was not the reason why Qing Yu's entire clan was slaughtered. This celestial source ancient talisman was found by Qing Yu's father when he went deep into the sea. No one knew its use, so Qing Yu took it with him as a plaything. Unexpectedly, on the day his elixir sea was broken, the talisman turned into a divine light and replaced the elixir sea, becoming the heaven's will of Qing Yu. As for the disaster that befell the Green Sun tribe, it was because of the ancient desolate heaven tablet. This tablet had a mysterious origin. It was given to Qing Yu by a sea tribe girl named Shi'er after he fell from grace. In addition to this tablet, there was also a jade conch that could shift space and save one's life. Shi'er came from the endless sea and gave him the tablet to repay his kindness. It turned out that when Qing Yu went out to train, he had saved the golden dragon tail. It was Shi'er. This was probably the so-called. How could a golden carp stay in the pond? In every novel, as long as a living being was saved by the child of destiny, regardless of race, they would either become a harem or brothers. When he was young, he had always thought that Su Xian was awesome. Now, he finally understood that as long as one could take on a human form, any pill could, it was still the same old trick. However, this ancient tablet seemed to be a sacred object of the sea race and had a great background. However, the girl's unintentional action caused the entire Green Sun tribe to be slaughtered. Moreover, the two of them had made an agreement to reunite on a deserted island at the border of the sea 7 years later. Calculating the time, it seemed that it was almost time. My little green plum, because of you, my beloved clansmen have been killed. How are you going to make it up to me? What? My appearance changed? If I don't change my appearance, won't it be difficult for me to escape from the sea race's pursuit? Come out. Ling Zhao's eyes flashed with a hint of coldness as the corners of his mouth curled up into a sneer. Lightning radiance blossomed from his palm and struck the ancient talisman. Although he had used the primordial demonic blade to shatter the demonic shadow of the ancient alligator, he had only severely injured it, but not killed it. Of course, according to Ling Zhao's guess, this demonic soul was originally a badly injured remnant soul, which was why it was so weak. Furthermore, based on Ling Zhao's understanding of Qin Yu's model, this demonic soul was most likely awakened after the ancient talisman transformed into the elixir sea and was nourished by the latter's spiritual energy. The ancient clansmen had accidentally fallen and hid their souls in the ancient talisman, hoping to meet a fated person to awaken them. It had awakened, but unfortunately, it was going to fall asleep again and never wake up. Junior, a deep voice suddenly resounded from the talisman. Then, a wisp of demonic aura transformed into a shadow and stood in front of Ling Xiao. It was a terrifying demonic shadow that was dozens of feet tall. It was several times more ferocious than the one on the seventh peak. At this time, the remnant soul of the ancient alligator lowered its head and stared at Ling Xiao indifferently. Its scaly face was full of arrogance and disdain. "Haha, Junior, you're still pretending to be a calf with me?" The more indifferent and domineering the remnant soul of the ancient alligator was, the more it proved that it was fake. Otherwise, he could have blocked the attack for Qin Yu for a while and used the jade conch to escape. Why did I have to watch the young man die? Buzz. A wisp of saber intent quietly rippled around Ling Xiao. In his hand, the immemorial demonic blade suddenly emitted a piercing black light. It seemed that immortals had fallen and demons had been beheaded. Heaven and earth could not withstand the power of the saber. With just a glance, the expression on the remnant soul of the ancient alligator's face froze. Then, under Ling Zhao's playful gaze, the 1,000-feet-tall demonic shadow gradually shrank and finally turned into a young man who was about the same height as him. "Ha ha ha, young master, I was just joking with you. Why did you use your saber?" At this time, there was no longer any arrogance on his face. Instead, there was a strong sense of fear. "Who are you?" Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. From his appearance, the remnant soul of the ancient alligator did not seem old. At this time, the fluctuation of his spirit was only in the range of a first-grade emperor god. In other words, he could kill him with a wave of his hand. "Ha ha, young master, I am from the ancient heavenly alligator clan. You know the ancient heavenly alligator, right? My ancestor was the mount of an ancient god. He conquered thousands of worlds and swallowed dragons and phoenixes. How is it? Is it very majestic? Let me tell you, as long as you follow me, I promise that in the future, you and I will be the rulers of the Shengzhou state." The remnant soul of the ancient alligator spoke like a river and looked at the black ancient saber in Ling Zhao's hand warily. For some reason, although there was no power in the saber and it looked ordinary, the more ordinary it was, the more he felt terrified. "You and I will be the rulers?" Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows and shook his head slightly. He raised the black saber in his hand and was about to slash at the remnant soul of the ancient alligator. "Wait a minute. Boy, let me tell you, I am the young master of the heavenly alligator clan. My ancestor is not dead. If I die, my ancestor will know. By then, the whole world will not tolerate you." Seeing that Ling Xiao was not moved at all, the remnant soul of the ancient alligator suddenly roared fiercely. "Oh, the whole world will not tolerate you?" A bright smile suddenly bloomed on Ling Xiao's face. Then, under the stunned gaze of the remnant soul of the ancient alligator, the moon suddenly appeared in his eyes. At the same time, an ancient demonic aura that made one's scalp tingle fell from the sky. In just one breath's time, the entire realm turned completely into night. The blue sky was no longer there, and the bright sun was no longer shining. Only the young man's blood-red eyes were like the origin of the nine-sky demon, revealing endless evil. Gulp. Demon, you are a demon. The nine heavens will not tolerate you. Judging from the aura of this demon, the nine heavens will not tolerate you. But how could it be? How could there be such a great demon in the Shenzhou state? Big brother, do I still have a chance? I want to go through the plot again. The remnant soul of the heavenly alligator swallowed hard and felt a chill in its body. A mount of the immortal clan dares to be so arrogant in front of me? Ling Xiao smiled faintly and slashed the demonic saber in his hand. The nine heavens will not tolerate you? So what? Chapter 640. The sound of a saber was heard. Countless Tao inscriptions materialized in the void, transforming into an inescapable net that suppressed the heavens and earth. Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back. There seemed to be a demon standing behind him, looking down at the world. There was no light in the entire realm. Suddenly, a black light flashed and cut the darkness apart. The mist seemed to be mixed with primordial Tao and tint, which made people feel cold. The remnant soul of the heavenly crocodile didn't even have time to resist before it was cut in half by the saber aura. The darkness retreated like a tide. In Ling Xiao's eyes, the soul-sucking ghost pearl emitted a ray of blood light and devoured the thousands of souls. Boom! Boom! The soul palace rose, flowing with endless mysteries. Extremely complex, demonic runes floated up from the palace and eventually dissipated into nothingness. Ling Xiao sat cross-legged. The ancient stone talisman in his hand turned into a ray of light and disappeared into his dantian. The sea of spirit qi surged from all directions and gathered around Ling Xiao. Thousands of rays of light rose, and countless Tao patterns formed an array. At this moment, the power of heaven and earth was in Ling Xiao's hands. Is this the immortal source that the patriarch of the Foliaceae mentioned? It's really mysterious. Ling Xiao lowered his head and looked at the spiritual aura surrounding him. The corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. With the power of the immortal source, he could absorb the spirit qi of heaven and earth into his body without deliberately cultivating. It was somewhat similar to the purple qi pure Tao body. Why were the deities so powerful? The reason might be because of the immortal Tao's origin. The spirit qi of heaven and earth was beautiful and ethereal. Besides, Ling Xiao also learned the location of an ancient site from the remnant soul of the heavenly crocodile. That was the place where the demon died and its remains were left. It was also the ancestral ground of the heavenly crocodile clan. However, the heavenly crocodile was originally a remnant soul, so its memory was fragmented and incomplete. He didn't know if the ancient site hidden deep in the endless sea realm had the opportunity he wanted. Now that Qin Yu was dead, the immortal mystic sect still had 3 leeks waiting to be harvested. Qin Chu, Phoenix Rouge, and Ling Xiao had already come up with a countermeasure. However, Ling Xiao didn't know how to deal with the ordinary Qin Qingshan. That piece of pure gold is definitely something extraordinary. However, I wonder which model this Qin Qingshan is using. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. He wasn't anxious about this. The children of destiny gathered at the immortal, profound mountain. There would definitely be many interesting things happening. Moreover, the heavenly pool was about to open. By then, he would have plenty of time to toy with the 3 of them. However, The most important thing right now was to make everyone believe that there were demons in the immortal profound sect. When the time was right, Qin Shu and Phoenix Rouge would become enemies of the entire world. Among the 8 tribes, there should be some monsters who have comprehended the Tao law, right? Ling Zhao's eyes flashed with a sinister light. He appeared in front of the Blood Dragon Hall and handed the god-slaying battle formation to Xiao Beifa before reappearing in the Immortal Sect's main hall. At this moment, Han Qingqiu was already waiting quietly in the hall. "Young master, you finally came out." At this moment, her face was slightly anxious. "What's wrong?" Ling Xiao looked out of the hall with a pensive expression. "The sect master of the Immortal Profound Sect has been waiting for a long time." "Oh, ask him to come in." Ling Xiao nodded and turned around to sit in the main hall. Soon, Helian Shan and Feng Yuanyang pushed open the door and walked into the hall. "Greetings, Saint." "Sect master, what's the matter?" Ling Zhao's expression didn't change. The commotion on the 7th peak couldn't have been hidden from the sect master of the Immortal Profound Sect. He most likely came here because of Qing He and the remnant soul of the Heavenly Crocodile. "Saint, today's matter is due to the negligence of the Immortal Profound Sect. I didn't expect that young man to have the remnant soul of the Heavenly Crocodile." Helian Shan let out a long sigh. He was originally proficient in the dark yellow divination Tao. Before Ling Xiao entered the southern border, he vaguely saw the chaos that was about to happen. The Heavenly Crocodile clan was the overlord of the Endless Sea. Now that a remnant soul appeared in the Immortal Profound Sect and was killed by Ling Xiao, the Sea tribe wouldn't let it go. "It's okay. It's just a remnant soul." Ling Xiao looked calm, as if he didn't care about the Sea tribe. The first divine envoy of the sacred sect was here. He had enough confidence in this expert of the sacred sect. In the entire Xingzhou, a 9th-grade expert was the best. Perhaps even the legendary Sea Emperor might not be a match for the first divine envoy. The divine master sent him to the southern border because he considered the threat of the Sea tribe. With this person here, the Sea tribe wouldn't dare to be too arrogant. Saint, the Heavenly Crocodile clan was the overlord of the Endless Sea during the ancient times. They still have a high prestige in the Endless Sea. Once the Sea King knows about this, it will cause a lot of trouble. So, Helian Shan wanted to say something, but stopped. After a while, he sighed. "Why don't we invite the divine envoy here? Otherwise, there will be changes in the battle for the Heavenly Pool. The Sea tribe will send experts for the battle for the Heavenly Pool." Ling Xiao sipped the tea in his cup. He had heard that the Sea tribe and the human race would fight for the 10 people in the Heavenly Pool. However, he had been here for a whole day, but he didn't see any experts from the Sea tribe. In Ling Zhao's opinion, the Sea tribe was the main force in the southern border, not the human race. So, there would probably be more seafood to eat in that clan. According to the previous rules, the human race and the Sea tribe will each send 10 geniuses to fight. The 10 winners will get the chance to enter the Heavenly Pool. Helian Shan sighed. This saint was indeed very talented. He was invincible among his peers. However, those of the same generation were still those of the same generation. Currently, the Sea race's Sea monarch ruled the Endless Sea. There were thousands of Sea tribe clans in the Endless Sea. Among them, there were 10 royal clans. In terms of the number of demons, although the northern border was vast, it couldn't be compared to the Endless Sea. Once the Sea tribe demons caused trouble, the celestial mystic sect would be destroyed. Even the southern border's 8 tribes would not be able to fight against them. Back then, Helian Shan became famous not because he was strong and intimidated the experts of the Endless Sea. Instead, he made a bet with the Sea King. Helian Shan survived the Sea King's palm strike. That was why the Sea tribe retreated. The two races lived in peace for 200 years and didn't invade each other. However, the power of the world was bound to fall apart after a long period of peace. Now, the Sea tribe was very strong. The Sea King unified the Endless Sea and gathered the scattered sand into a formation. Even Helian Shan was extremely fearful of this overlord of the sea. The Sea King killed tens of thousands of his own race and became the Sea King. Such a person would not stay in a corner. If the Sea Tribe has some brains, they will not make things difficult for the Celestial Mystic sect at this juncture. Furthermore, the Sea Tribe worked together with a great demonic demon to wreak havoc in the western border. They should be killed. When Lord Divine Envoy finds the evidence, it will be the time for this race to be destroyed. Ling Xiao smiled faintly, looking like he was strategizing. What a joke. What did the destruction of the Celestial Mystic sect have to do with him? As long as he obtained the fortune in the Heavenly Lake and a few leeks were ripe, he would leave. At that time, it would be the Sea King or the Sea King that came. It was none of his business. This, the Celestial Mystic sect master, and Feng Yuanyang looked at each other. In the end, they did not say anything. In the end, the current ruler of the Shengzhou was still the Divine Master. As long as he didn't die, the Sea Tribe would not dare to completely fall out with the human race. In that case, Holy Sun, we will take our leave. Looking at the two people walking out of the hall, Ling Xiao's lips curled into a playful smile. The moon was dark and the wind was strong. It was a good time to kill. Chapter 641. Lord Saint, are you looking for me? In the main hall, an immortal mystic sect disciple in a long robe bowed towards Ling Xiao. His face was filled with doubt and surprise. With his status, not to mention being summoned by the saint, even a glance would be a supreme honor. Suddenly, this immortal mystic sect disciple felt like he had reached the heavens in a single step. Could it be that my immortal path has just begun? What's your name? Forget it, it's too troublesome. Ling Xiao's eyes were clear and cold. Then, he shook his head and walked to the side of the youth. The soul light in his eyes suddenly brightened. The immortal mystic sect disciple didn't even have time to react before he felt his body lighten. It was as if his life had been sublimated. 8 young masters, who should I kill first? Forget it, I'll select the soldiers and generals. Whoever I select will die. Ling Xiao casually threw the disciple's corpse into the realm. A jumbled memory flashed across his mind. In the end, it stopped at a determined and dark face. You Sun Tribe's young master, Yu Zhe, who asked you to have a dark face. Ling Xiao's eyes flashed with a hint of evilness. His figure instantly disappeared from the spot. Immortal mystic ancient sect, the moonlight was cold. In the sea of ancient trees, there was a spiritual aura quietly rippling. However, at this moment, under the moonlight, a figure was hidden in the dark. He easily avoided the guarding disciples and appeared in front of a palace at the back of the mountain. Those who could come to the immortal mystic sect were mostly the famous geniuses of the southern border. Among them, the 8 young masters were the leaders. Each of them was brave. However, no matter if it was the geniuses or the ancient tribe's young masters, they were not worth mentioning when compared to Ling Xiao. Is young master Yu Zhe here? Ling Xiao stood in front of the main hall. His face was covered by immortal clouds, and his tone was extremely calm. Who was outside the hall? Soon, a vigorous voice came from the hall. Then, the door opened and a half-naked strong youth walked out with a frown. In the next moment, a hint of surprise suddenly appeared on his face. It's Lord Saint? May I know why the saint is visiting so late at night? A 9th-grade divine general with no luck. Ling Xiao sighed inwardly. However, a bloody moon was floating in his eyes. In just an instant, the expression on Yu Zhe's face became completely lifeless. Then, he followed closely behind Ling Xiao and walked into the palace. The people of the demonic Dao might not be as cruel as the world imagined them to be. But since it was a setup, what Ling Xiao had to do was to make people believe that humans were killed by demons. Therefore, when Ling Xiao's figure walked out of the main hall, a dense smell of blood had already filled the entire hall. At this moment, on the floor of the palace, Yu Zhe was covered in blood, his head separated from his body. Even his 4 limbs had been neatly cut off by a sharp blade and placed to the side. Not a single part of his skin was intact. His appearance was simply inhumane. No matter how one looked at it, such a method of killing did not seem like something a decent person would do. There was a devil in the immortal profound sect. Young lord! Early in the morning of the next day, a mournful cry of grief suddenly sounded out from the immortal mystic ancient mountain. In the entire immortal mystic sect, countless powerful auras descended from the sky and enveloped Yu Zei's bedroom. Ling Zhao's figure walked out of the main hall. He raised his head and looked at the clear sky and bright sun. The corner of his mouth raised into a gentle smile. The Go game started. What Xiao Chun needed to do was to uphold justice and eliminate the demon Dao outstanding talents of the righteous Dao. As for whether the demon would be Qin Shu or Phoenix Rouge, it would depend on which of the two was more useful. What happened? Ling Zhao's figure descended from the sky and landed in front of the main hall. Behind him, Han Qingxiu and Hua Hua followed closely. Saint, you've come. The immortal mystic sect master bowed slightly and gave Hua Hua a meaningful glance. Since Ling Zhao's arrival that day, he had sensed a wisp of demonic aura from this young girl. It was very obvious that this young girl with a valiant appearance was a demonic beast in human form. Of course, if a demonic beast in human form came up the mountain in the past, he would definitely interrogate it and even kill it. However, this girl was following the saint. Perhaps she was a mount or a pet. What's going on? Ling Xiao frowned. There was a hint of surprise in his eyes. Saint, the young master of Yushuan tribe, was killed last night. The immortal mystic sect master sighed softly. His expression was extremely serious. Nonsense. How could he not be serious? To be able to kill someone right under his nose with such a cruel method, wasn't this a slap to his face? Moreover, the saint was on the mountain now. Wasn't this telling the saint that he, Helian Shan, was useless? What? Who did this? Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed. He lifted his foot and walked into the main hall. Looking at the bloodstains on the ground, his footsteps trembled slightly. What a cruel method! Saint, I suspect there's a demon lurking in our immortal mystic sect. At this point, Helian Shan didn't dare to hide anything anymore. This method of killing was obviously not done by the righteous path. It must be done by a crazy demon. However, the reason why he killed Yuzo was still unconfirmed. To be able to kill a young master of an ancient tribe who was a 9th grade divine general silently, this demon's cultivation must have surpassed the divine overlord realm or even higher. There's a demon? Hearing this, the expressions of everyone in the hall changed instantly. What kind of demon had the guts to challenge the dignity of the immortal mystic sect and the saint? However, inexplicably, a trace of doubt flashed across Feng Yuanyang's eyes. He knew that there was a demon on the immortal mystic mountain. Qinshu, a disciple taught by 6 great demons together. His methods were naturally terrifying and strange. Killing a divine general was not a big problem. However, it shouldn't be. Although the 6 demons cultivated demonic techniques and acted recklessly, they weren't cruel and merciless people. Otherwise, he wouldn't have changed his view of the demons back then and traveled with the 6 of them. Investigate. Investigate all the people who have a grudge against this young master of an ancient tribe. I don't believe that a demon can come and go freely on the immortal mystic mountain. Ling Xiao snorted coldly and turned to look at Qin Shu, who was in the crowd. However, at this moment, the young man's face was slightly pale. He looked like he wanted to say something, but stopped. Should I tell the saint that demons might not be bad people? At the very least, my 6 masters are carefree and unrestrained and kind-hearted people. And with Ling Zhao's character and vision, he shouldn't be so narrow-minded, right? Perhaps it was done by demons? Yes. Instantly, the immortal mystic sect was in a mess. All the young geniuses gathered in groups of 3 to 5, obviously afraid that they would be killed by the demon if they were alone. For 3 consecutive days, the immortal mystic sect was completely shrouded in a layer of dark clouds. However, just as everyone gradually relaxed their vigilance and thought that Yu Zei's death might be a simple vendetta, another young master of an ancient tribe was killed by 1,000 cuts. His body was densely covered with 937 sword wounds. As a result, the identity of this murderous demon shrunk a little. This demon was a sword demon with terrifying attainments in the way of the sword. On the seventh peak, Ling Xiao sat in front of the stone table, gently sipping the tea in his cup. Beside him, Phoenix Rouge sat on the ground, fiddling with a burning firewood in front of her. Young master, who do you think the murderous demon is? At this moment, her eyes were clear and puzzled. Clearly, she felt that there was a conspiracy in the bottom of her heart. It's hard to say. In this world, most true demons hide their bodies. They look docile on the outside, but they are very scheming. This demon could be me, or it could be you. Ling Xiao put down the teacup and sighed. However, Phoenix Rouge's face instantly froze. The firewood in her hand broke. Chapter 642. Ha ha ha, you're such a joker. Phoenix Rouge picked up the teapot and filled Ling Xiao's cup with tea. If you're a demon, wouldn't this world become a demon's world? As for me, if I could kill 2 young masters without anyone noticing, I wouldn't be a nameless disciple of the 7th summit. Rouge's cultivation should be at the 3rd stage of the divine overlord realm, right? Also, it's the most poisonous poison in the world. Ling Xiao's lips curled into a playful smile, while Feng Rouge's hand that was holding the pot trembled slightly. At this moment, she seemed to be hesitating. Should she scheme against the saint of the sacred sect? Why did she feel like she was being seen through in front of him? Also, this holy son's temperament was truly unfathomable. In the past, Feng Rouge only needed to interact with the people she had met a few times to roughly guess their temperament, character, and way of doing things. However, the Ling Xiao in front of her really left her scratching her head. Sometimes, he was a righteous man who protected the common people and exterminated demons. But sometimes his words and actions deviated from the norm. He was decisive and temperamental. For the first time, Phoenix Rouge was curious and fearful of someone of the same generation. You're right. My cultivation is at the 3rd stage of the divine overlord realm. But where did you get the poison from? Phoenix Rouge put down the teapot and frowned. She looked at Ling Xiao curiously. How come you seem to know everything? It's so scary. The saint has a technique to see through people's cultivation. As for poison, the most poisonous thing in the world is beauty. With Rouge's looks, it's not too much for me to say that you're the most poisonous, right? Ling Xiao smiled faintly. His gentle gaze instantly dispelled Feng Rouge's doubts. You're really good at flirting. What do you think is a demon? A demon does whatever he wants and does whatever he wants. He's clear about love and hate. He dares to go against the world because of his obsession. Hearing this, Phoenix Rouge's eyes narrowed, and the confusion on his face grew. Why did it sound like the saint of the sacred sect didn't hate demons? Instead, there was a hint of admiration? If that's the case, why do you want to slay the demons? The devils that I slay are the evil devils that bring calamity to the world. They're not demons. Ling Xiao looked at Phoenix Rouge meaningfully, then stood up and walked out of the courtyard. There are only 2 more days until the Heavenly Lake contest. Rouge, I hope you won't disappoint me. Young master, Phoenix Rouge frowned. Don't disappoint him? Then, what was he looking forward to? At the peak of the immortal profound mountain, Feng Yuanyang stood with his hands behind his back. Behind him, Qin Shu looked at the first elder of the immortal sect in confusion. Elder, may I know why you call me here? To be honest, these 3 days were also torturous for Qin Shu. The entire immortal mystic sect was discussing the devil. He made it sound as if all the evil in the world were done by demons. As the disciple of the 6 demons, he was naturally angry. After all, he wasn't the one who did it. Even if there were other demons hiding in the immortal mystic sect, they shouldn't be so biased and humiliate all the demons in the world. Of course, although Qin Shu was innocent, he wasn't stupid. At this juncture, if he exposed his demon identity, he would be killed by these righteous people before he had a chance to explain himself. If he wanted to prove the name of the devil, he had to cultivate hard, stand at the top of the world, be a hero, and protect the common people. I, Qin Shu, am going to be a devil that is revered by the people of this world. What's the matter? Feng Yuanyang's eyes flashed with murderous intent. Don't you know why I called you here? Others don't know your identity, but I do. You're pretending to be a coward. If your 6 masters didn't save my life, why do you think you're still alive? No matter what grudges he had with the 8 young masters, the way he killed was too bloody and cruel. Feng Yuanyang admired the freedom of demons, but he didn't expect the disciple of the 6 demons to be such a ruthless person. Demons and swordsmanship could easily kill people of the same generation. Among the geniuses who came up the mountain, only Qin Shu and Ling Xiao seemed to meet these conditions. But the latter was the saint of the saint. If he wanted to kill someone, did he have to hide it? Therefore, in Feng Yuanyang's opinion, the murderous demon was Qin Shu. What? You said it wasn't you? Then why was the immortal mystic sect safe and sound before you came? When you came, there were traces of demons in the immortal mystic sect. If it wasn't you, could it be the saint of Ling Xiao? Let's stop before I remember our past relationship. Feng Yuanyang sighed, his eyes inexplicably vicissitudes of life. Sure enough, time was the most mysterious thing in the world. It could let people see a person's heart and change one's mind. Senior, what do you mean? I don't understand. Qin Shu frowned and looked at the first elder of the immortal mystic sect in confusion. Why was this old man acting so strangely? I don't care what grudges you have with the 8 young masters, nor do I know why you came out this time. If you dare to kill people in the immortal mystic sect again, I will kill you with my own hands. Feng Yuanyang turned and walked down the mountain, leaving Qin Shu standing alone in the wind. What the F***? I didn't kill anyone. Why did this old man think that I killed someone? Because of our old friendship? Could it be that he knew the masters? In front of the ancient forest, Ling Xiao hid his figure and looked coldly at the youth in the distance. Previously, he had set up a method on Qin Shu's body with the intention of finding the 6 demon seclusion. But just now, he sensed that Qin Shu came to the mountain peak in the middle of the night. He thought that something must have happened. After all, the immortal mystic sect was full of traces of demons. At this time, all the southern border geniuses were hiding in the palace in case of accidents. He just didn't expect that the first elder of the immortal mystic sect would so easily put the blame on Qin Shu. Moreover, from his words, Ling Xiao could tell that this person must know the 6 demons. Wonderful. Qin Shu, it seems that you have no choice but to take the blame. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. In these 2 days, the southern border geniuses of the immortal mystic sect arrived one after another. The beasts of the immortal mystic sect descended from the sky with endless spiritual aura. The battle for the heavenly lake was the most important event in the southern border. It was said that the heavenly lake was connected to the spirit veins of the southern border. The spiritual liquid in the lake would fill up once every 100 years. Therefore, the fortune of the heavenly lake only appeared once every 100 years. The last time the heavenly lake appeared, a total of 9 sea race prodigies and 1 human prodigy entered to temper their physiques and absorb spiritual energy. In the end, all 10 of them broke through to the next realm, shocking the world. At night, the moon was as cold as water. Endless moonlight shone from the sky, making the ancient forest in the mountain look like a demon. It was ferocious and looked extremely terrifying. However, at this moment, Ling Xiao's palace was brightly lit and bustling with people. The arrival of the saint of the sacred sect to southern border was a supreme honor for the 8 tribes and the southern border geniuses. Tomorrow morning was the battle for the heavenly lake. As the saint, he naturally had to give a speech to inspire people and set an example. Winning people's hearts was a game of power. At this moment, Ling Xiao was reclining on a golden chair in the palace with a gentle expression. Beside him, Han Qingxiu and Hua Hua were holding a cup of wine and a spiritual fruit respectively. They fed Ling Xiao one by one. Seeing this scene, countless southern border geniuses had a wisp of envy in their eyes. What was a winner in life? With power in his hands and beauties by his side, he was invincible and unparalleled. Damn, Saint Ling Xiao, I'm willing to call you the most cunning person in the world. Chapter 643. Is everyone here? Ling Xiao smiled lazily. He supported his chin with one hand and raised his wine cup with the other. He looked at the people in the hall. To be honest, if this attitude was on any other genius, they would definitely be scolded badly. As the host, it was rude to be too unrestrained. But was the Holy Sun being unrestrained? The Holy Sun was not bothered by trifles and was carefree. The Holy Sun Ling Xiao was a very real person, not pretentious. Everyone in the hall bowed at the same time and looked at Ling Xiao and Han Qingxiu and Hua Hua beside him. With their beauty, they were among the top in the southern border. More importantly, these two beauties each had their own characteristics. Han Qingxiu's temperament was ethereal and cold. She had an immortal aura that did not belong to the mortal world. As for Hua Hua, her figure was hot and her eyes were filled with charm. One look and one could tell that she was a coquettish little demon. This kind of beauty could only be possessed by an outstanding talent like the Holy Sun. No, all the beauties in this world should belong to the young master. In the crowd, Phoenix Rouge's eyes darted around, but she felt an inexplicable disdain in her heart. As expected, handsome people are all trash. You already have two beauties by your side, but you still come to the seventh peak to chat with me and admire the moon? As if sensing the coldness in her eyes, Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows. However, he heard Hua Hua whisper, "Young master, can you give it to me?" Ling Xiao turned his head and saw Hua Hua's eyes filled with greed. He sighed in his heart. It seemed that the demon dragon's nature was to eat both men and women. I can't give it to you. Young master, you can't have all the beautiful women in this world, right? Hua Hua shook Ling Xiao's arm and pleaded, "My good young master, if I capture her and serve you with her, wouldn't that be a beautiful thing?" "Oh, that's a good idea, but I really can't give it to you." The corners of Ling Xiao's mouth curled up into a smile. "This woman has the sky poison body. With your current cultivation, I'm afraid you'll be poisoned into a pile of bones before you even touch her." "What?" Hua Hua's expression changed. She turned to look at Phoenix Rouge. "I didn't expect her to be a poisonous woman. You're only allowed to look but not eat?" "Not necessarily. It depends on who eats it." Ling Xiao smiled indifferently and stood up from the golden chair. Calculating the time, it should be about time. "Young master, the young master of the Nachan tribe, Cheng Yun, hasn't arrived yet." Someone in the hall exclaimed in surprise. Logically speaking, since Cheng Yun's palace was right next to the saint's bedroom, he should have arrived earlier. Suddenly, the originally bustling hall fell into a deathly silence. F***CK. It couldn't be, right? Did that demon attack again? In the next few days, two young masters of the immortal mystic sect had already been killed by the devils. However, no matter how hard the immortal mystic sect master investigated, he couldn't find any trace of the devil. If not for the presence of Ling Xiao, the saint, the experts of the tribes on the immortal mountain would have already sent troops to Hellion Mountain to denounce them. Let's go and take a look." Ling Xiao frowned slightly. In a flash, he dashed out of the hall. Behind him, the southern border prodigies followed closely, their faces filled with fear. Cheng Yun, the young master of the Nanchen tribe, was the top demon in southern border. At the age of 30, he was already a divine overlord expert and had Tao laws around him. If even he couldn't escape from the devil's claws, wouldn't everyone else be fish on the chopping board? On the mountain path, a figure in linen clothes slowly walked over. At this moment, Qin Chu's face was filled with excitement. Just now, he received a message from Ling Xiao, asking him to come to the saint's bedroom for a chat. It was already late, and he was going to the saint's bedroom. Could it be that the saint wants to talk to me through the night? This was something that only close friends would do. I knew it. The saint and I have a tacit understanding. We hit it off at first sight. Perhaps he has taken a liking to me as well. However, just as Qin Chu was thinking to himself, a figure covered in demonic aura suddenly flashed past at the end of his line of sight, heading towards a hall in the distance. Qin Chu's footsteps trembled, and a hint of killing intent suddenly appeared on his face. "Devil! There was indeed a devil in the immortal mystic sect. F*CK. Feng Yuanyang's words that day still lingered in Qin Shu's ears. He was already depressed that he had to bear the crime of murder for no reason. Now that he finally saw the trace of the devil, how could he let it go so easily? Great! I've finally met you. As long as I catch you, I can clear my name and let Elder Feng Yuanyang know that I, Qin Shu, am not the murderer. Moreover, although he was a demonic cultivator and the disciple of a great devil, his character had always been upright. Now that he saw that the devil was about to do evil again, how could he ignore it? Tonight, I will clear the name of the devil. Whoosh! With this thought in mind, Qin Shu did not hesitate at all and chased after the demonic figure in a flash. In this immortal mystic mountain, he did not need to kill the devil at all. He only needed to delay it for a moment, and it would definitely attract the attention of the experts of the immortal sect. At that time, the truth would be revealed. Saint Ling Xiao would definitely applaud my righteousness. Boom! When Qin Shu's figure landed in front of the hall, he saw the demonic aura sweeping through the hall, and a strong smell of blood filled the air. Obviously, the devil had succeeded again. You're courting death. Qin Shu's eyes narrowed slightly, and the wine pot in his hand released a dark glow. There seemed to be tens of thousands of sword intents circulating within, and the invisible killing intent blocked the demonic aura. Around his body, spiritual light began to bloom, and the 1,000-elephant divine body turned into a phantom that stood in the sky. Multicolored light floated in the sky, and Tao patterns condensed. The entire world became as bright as day. Then, he lifted his foot and walked into the hall. What entered his sight was a pool of blood and the figure of a young man who had fallen to the ground. At this time, his body was also cut into pieces by the sword intent and piled up like rotten meat. Qin Shu frowned and looked into the depths of the hall, only to see a figure shrouded in demonic light looking back at him. A pair of blood-red eyes flashed with a hint of mockery. Boom! Outside the hall, waves of spiritual power suddenly surged. Let's see where you can run now. Qin Shu sneered, and a crimson gold array flag floated in the air in front of him. It evolved into an array that enveloped the entire hall. There seemed to be a sea of black and yellow energy overflowing on it, surging endlessly and revealing endless mysteries. At this time, each of the spirit treasures in his hand could be called a supreme treasure. They were originally the items that made the 6 demons famous. Now that he was using them alone, their power could be imagined. Brother Cheng-Yun, are you inside? Dense footsteps came from outside the hall. Qin Shu's eyes flashed with joy, and he waved his hand to open the array map. Everyone, there is a devil here. Quickly come and help me. However, just as Qin Shu's voice fell, his eyes suddenly widened, filled with a hint of disbelief. He saw that the demonic figure standing in front of him suddenly and strangely disappeared into thin air. The power of the realm shifted with Ling Zhao's mind. Now that his divine stainless body was outside the hall, even if the hall was sealed by the array map, how could it trap him? Gulp! Quite suddenly, Qin Shu felt a chill from the bottom of his feet to the top of his head. Chapter 644. Beep. The Chosen One feels a chill in his heart and is panicking. Congratulations to the host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Hearing the notification from the system, Ling Zhao's eyes were calm and even a little solemn. Therefore, it was understandable for immortal cultivators to live in seclusion. However, they had to teach their disciples to live in seclusion, without seeing the world and experiencing hardships. No matter how high their cultivation level was, how many chapters could they survive on the path to immortality? Flipping through the history of the 9 heavens, one would find that there was only one word on the long path to immortality: eating people. Why does this voice sound so familiar? The southern border elites looked at each other, especially the surging demonic aura in the hall. It made them feel a trace of fear. Buzz! Above the void, ripples appeared, and the moonlight fluctuated. A powerful aura descended. The celestial mystic sect master, Grand Elder Feng Yuanyang, and the others descended from the sky and looked at the hall in front of them with a frown. With the level of their souls, they could easily sense the fluctuations of life force within. Judging from the density of the demonic aura, this person's identity didn't seem to need to guess. Boom! Ling Xiao took a step forward. Lightning flashed around his body and turned into a seal out of thin air, striking towards the array flag that enveloped the hall. However, he didn't use his full strength at this time, and the array flag was a supreme grade Dao artifact. Therefore, this seal only caused it to tremble for a moment before calming down. Damn! What a supreme treasure that could conceal one's aura and whereabouts. As for how the demonic aura leaked out, no one cared at this time. Ling Xiao had already set up this trap. All the coincidences in front of them were just carefully planned by him. When he invited the young masters of the 8 tribes, he had sent people to wait outside Qin Shu's palace. He had purposely controlled the timing of the meeting. Ling Xiao's original body killed people, and his Dao body led everyone here. Not to mention Qin Shu, who had just entered the immortal path. Even the elders of the immortal sects would have to participate today. What was this called? Please enter the trap, so that I can catch the devil in the cage. Don't attack, don't attack. We're on the same side. Qin Shu exclaimed and took down the array flag, appearing in front of everyone. At this moment, there was confusion and unwillingness on his face, but more than that, there was an indescribable fear. She seemed to have been caught red-handed. Tell me, if I tell them that I'm also here to slay demons, will they believe me? Young Master Qin? Ling Xiao's footsteps came to a halt. His face was clearly filled with astonishment. Holy Sun, Ling Xiao. Qin Shu's body trembled as he swallowed hard. Especially the disappointment in Ling Xiao's eyes. He felt an indescribable grievance. When they first met, Qin Shu admired Ling Xiao's attainments in the Tao of the Sword. Then, Ling Xiao defeated a group of heavenly talents and helped him out of a predicament. In Qin Shu's eyes, although the saint status was high, his character was the key to moving him. Ever since he was young, Qin Shu had longed for the friendship of his 6 masters. When he was born this time, his masters had also warned him to find more like-minded friends so that his path to immortality would not be too lonely. However, I found a confidant. Originally, I wanted to shine in the battle for the heavenly lake and obtain the right to stand beside him. But why do I feel like I've lost both my confidant and fortune when I want to slay a demon tonight? Is it really you? Ling Xiao looked lost, and there was a faint sadness between his brows. At this moment, his gaze was not on Qin Shu. Instead, he was looking at the sky above the main hall. However, it was this attitude that made Qin Shu's heart hurt even more. I've already obtained Lord Ling Xiao's recognition, but now beep. The chosen one's heart trembled in pain. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Holy Sun, it really wasn't me. Qin Shu's voice was filled with sorrow, but his eyes were unusually determined. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. Lord Ling Xiao, the world can choose not to believe me, but you can't. It wasn't you. Qin Shu, you're the only one here. Young Master Cheng Yun died tragically. If it wasn't you, could it be that he chopped himself into pieces? An immortal mystic sect disciple shouted angrily with an angry expression. In the past few days, the southern border geniuses had been uneasy because of this demon. Now that he had finally been caught red-handed, he was actually still quibbling. It wasn't me. I saw that demon enter the hall, so I followed him and wanted to stall him for a moment. Qin Shu clenched his fists tightly. At this moment, his figure seemed especially lonely in the empty hall, although even he didn't believe such an excuse. However, he just didn't want to disappoint. Lord Ling Xiao, so you mean you ran into the hall, the demon was gone, and you happened to be blocked by us? Then Qin Shu, what's with the array you set up just now? If this array doesn't trap demons, why don't you trap air? That's right. Seems like we've really underestimated you. Look at your entire body. All of them are supreme Grey Dao weapons. No wonder the 8 tribe young masters can't match up to you. Even if you were to use your spirit treasure, you should be able to smash someone to death. Everyone mocked him coldly. Only Ling Xiao didn't say a word. He only looked at the blood on the ground coldly. Qin Shu, stop quibbling. You're the demon. In the crowd, Feng Yuanyang suddenly took a step forward and looked coldly at the youth in the hall. Compared to the other experts of the immortal sex, he knew Qin Shu's true identity from the beginning. The disciple of the 6 demons, not to mention his temperament, his identity alone was enough for him to be tolerated by the world. Qin Shu gritted his teeth. He was the demon. He never wanted to quibble, but he didn't kill them. Even if he died, he would never bear such slander. I didn't kill them. Since you insist on pushing the blame on me today, I have nothing to say. But you want me to die obediently? Impossible. If you really didn't kill them, then open your soul and let us check. Feng Yuanyang sighed. If he killed Qin Shu, the immortal mystic sect would definitely be hated by the 6 demons. Moreover, the 6 demons saved his life. No matter how much Qin Shu crossed the line, he should let them deal with him. If this was the disciple that the 6 demons wanted, cruel and ruthless, killing the innocent, Feng Yuanyang would cut off all ties with the 6 of them. But if the 6 demons didn't change, Qin Shu wouldn't be able to escape death. What can I do? I can't tell the saint and the sect master that I'm good friends with this guy's 6 demon masters, right? F***CK. Once this matter is exposed, he won't be able to escape. He won't even be able to die. When it came to demons, the saint sect would rather kill the wrong person than let them go. Not to mention a fellow demon who infiltrated the immortal sect. First Elder, although I don't know why you insist that I did it, I will open my soul. No one in the world can take this humiliation. Today, Qin Shu, will put my words here. If I survive, I will kill those who humiliate me. Qin Shu took a deep breath. The immortal gourd in his hand emitted 3,000 sword energies, cutting the space into pieces. Behind him, an immortal figure appeared out of nowhere. Dragons and elephants seemed to be floating around him. A divine gate appeared and a crane soared into the sky. Obviously, Qin Shu was prepared to fight to the death. The experts of the immortal sects couldn't distinguish right from wrong. He didn't want to stay in the immortal mystic sect. Chapter 645. You really didn't kill her? Ling Xiao sighed and finally looked at Qin Shu. Feeling the anticipation in his deep eyes, Qin Shu's eyes suddenly turned red. The world doesn't believe me, but you still ask. Saint Ling Xiao, you actually believe in Chuer, don't you? Saint, if you believe me, I'm willing to die today to prove my sincerity. My soul involves the secrets of my sect. Forgive me for not being able to comply. Qin Shu's tone was firm as he stood up straight. He wasn't afraid of death, but he was afraid of dying unjustly. His 6 masters were demons, and he was the disciple of the great demon. This was the truth. But his master's great wish was never to slaughter the innocent and become the supreme ruler of heaven and earth. They just wanted to break the shackles of this world and return true freedom to all living beings. One of the reasons he left the mountain village was to gain experience. Another reason was to prove the name of the demon. I believe you. Ling Xiao suddenly nodded, causing the entire mountain peak to fall into a deathly silence. Even Qin Shu's eyes flashed with astonishment. What did you say? I said I believe you, but now you're the most suspicious. If you believe me, seal your cultivation and follow me back to the palace. You're not allowed to go anywhere before the matter is investigated. Ling Xiao's tone was calm, and his eyes were cold. At this moment, his body seemed to be emitting a golden light that filled the entire palace. Gradually, he was the only one in Qin Shu's eyes. Tall, stalwart, straight, and incomparably handsome. You really believe me? Qin Shu's voice was trembling, and his eyes were misty. In his 20 years of life, he had only been touched twice. The first time, he begged on the street and was about to starve to death. It was the master who brought him a bowl of mutton soup and placed it in front of him. He smiled and said to eat. Qin Shu would never forget that cold and emotionless face. It wasn't that he had never seen cultivators or so-called righteous cultivators. But how many of those high and mighty immortals really cared about the suffering of mortals? What they cared about was fortune, cultivation, and the will to live as long as the heavens. However, the one who saved him was a demon. In the eyes of the world, he was a cruel, bloodthirsty, and evil great demon. From that day onwards, Qin Shu understood that the people of the world had a deep misunderstanding of the devil. However, he was powerless because he was a weak and lowly ant whose life was in the hands of others. He cried as he finished the bowl of mutton soup. Not even the chopped green onions were left. Then, he returned the bowl to the great demon, kowtowed 9 times, and turned to leave. However, when Ryu asked him if he was willing to cultivate with her, Qin Shu cried and wailed. He knelt on the ground and kowtowed until he passed out from exhaustion. When he woke up, he was already in the mountain village. His 6 teachers treated him very well. He gradually came to know that his masters had a great enemy, the #1 expert of the Shenzhou continent. On the other hand, the honorable masters lived in the mountain village. Although they seemed to be free and unrestrained, wasn't it also a kind of forced? Qin Shu swore that one day he would fulfill his master's great wish and return freedom to them and the world. And today, this was the second time he had felt warmth and trust from someone else. His emotions began to break down uncontrollably. He was enemies with the world. Even the first elder of the immortal sect, who had an old relationship with his master, wanted to kill him. Only Lord Ling Xiao believed in him. Beep. The chosen one is deeply moved by the villain. Congratulations, host, for plundering 1,000 luck points and 10,000 villain points. Hearing the notification from the system, Ling Xiao's lips curled up. Qin Shu couldn't die. He still needed to use him to open the hearts of the 6 great demons. As for why he schemed against him before the Battle of the Heavenly Lake, of course, it was because Ling Xiao had never thought of asking him to enter the Heavenly Lake, because there was another good show going on there. Feng Rouge, look at how surprised you are. I like how you look like someone who has never seen the world. Don't worry, I'll make you cry soon. Saint, don't be fooled by him. He's a demon, a true demon. Feng Yuanyang frowned. He had promised Wen Ruyu that he would take care of Qin Shu. But the junior he wanted to take care of was definitely not a cruel and bloodthirsty demon. Qin Shu's actions had crossed his bottom line. He was an old friend of the 6 demons and the first elder of the immortal mystic sect. How could he explain to the 8 tribes if he let this demon go? Time was indeed a wonderful thing. If one was in position for a long time, they would no longer have freedom. All they thought about was the people of the world, not old relationships. This was probably the so-called immortal of the righteous Tao. Oh, Elder Feng, why do you think he's a demon? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows and looked at the excited Feng Yuanyang in surprise. I've already caught him red-handed. What's there to hesitate about? Of course, even if Feng Yuanyang knew Qin Shu's identity, he didn't dare to expose him. However, letting the demon return to the mountain would cause endless trouble in the future. It's too much of coincidence. Tonight, I'm discussing the Tao with the young masters of the 8 tribes and invited Qin Shu to go with me. As long as he has some brains, he wouldn't kill at this time. So, most likely someone wants to frame him. I'll find out the real culprit and give the 8 tribes an explanation. First Elder, you don't need to say anything more. Ling Xiao looked deeply at Feng Yuanyang, instantly making him swallow the words he was about to say. Compared to the 6 great demons, he was clearly more wary of this holy son. It wasn't worth offending him. But, Saint, you're too naive. Haven't you ever thought that he had predicted your prediction and made his move at this moment? Saint, you're right. However, since Ling Xiao had said that he was looking for the true demon, it would be rude for him to say anything more. In the end, under everyone's confused gazes, Ling Xiao took the lead and walked toward the distant hall. Behind him, Qin Shu clenched his fists and followed closely. The world was as cold as ice, but the young master was warm and comfortable. In fact, at this moment, Qin Shu already had the intention to lay his cards on the table with Ling Xiao. Young master, I'm a demon, but I'm not a demon who kills people. Interesting. In the crowd, Phoenix Rouge looked at the two figures gradually walking away, a profound look flashing in her beautiful eyes. The children of destiny were indeed arrogant and prideful, tainted by karma everywhere. This Qin Chu must be hiding an unspeakable secret, but Ling Xiao was protecting him. From Feng Yuanyang's attitude, Phoenix Rouge already had a guess. It was highly likely that the first elder knew about Qin Chu's background. Otherwise, with his majesty as the God Emperor, how could he make irresponsible remarks and insist that Qin Chu was a devil? Interesting. Calculating the time, the letter she sent to the Million Ghost sect should be arriving soon, right? She had already investigated C.I. Er's identity. This girl's surname was Gu, and she had a great background. Heavenly Lake Battle? Haha. Was it going to become the Demon Extermination Conference? Of course, even if she miscalculated this step and that demonic woman didn't fall in love with Chun Qing Shan, Phoenix Rouge wouldn't lose anything. At most, she would slowly feed the poison. No, I have to return to the 7th Summit and ask Junior Brother about the details of his relationship with Gusa. If it's fate, these two must have experienced a complicated plot before they fell in love. Chapter 646. Saint, thank you for today. In the main hall, Qin Shu suddenly took a deep breath and bowed to Ling Xiao. At this moment, there was still a touch of gratitude on his face. It was obvious that Ling Xiao had struck a chord in his heart with today's situation. What a joke. What did a young man who had not appeared for more than 10 years and lived in seclusion with the 6 great demons lack the most? Freedom? Love? None of those. What he lacked was recognition among his peers. After all, his master was an elder. Even if he praised and cared for the young man, there was still a trace of emotion. Of course, his own child was the best. It was easier to feel a sense of accomplishment when one was recognized by their peers. Qin Shu was not dead now, not because of his admiration for Ling Xiao. It was because his value was not as simple as plundering luck. From the first day Ling Xiao entered Nanjiang, he had already thought of a way to deal with the first oracle. This oracle had always been mysterious and had never shown his true face to others. Other than the Divine Master, no one in the Saint Church had ever seen his true appearance. However, his strength was recognized by the entire Saint sect. He was the strongest person below the Divine Master. Even with Ling Xiao's current foundation, he was not confident that he could deal with a 9th-grade Divine Emperor. However, now that the 4 oracles were guarding one border each, it was the best time to kill them. If they missed this opportunity, when the 3 of them returned to Zhongjiang, things would become much more troublesome. The 6 demons were peerless powerhouses who had survived the Divine Master. After living in seclusion for 100 years, their injuries should have recovered by now. In this case, it was not impossible to make use of them. Swordsmen are not good at lying. Ling Xiao shook his head. His gaze was like a sword, and a sharp vortex seemed to gather around him, cutting the space into pieces. That's right, I am a demon, but I didn't kill them. Qin Shu clenched his fists and looked at Ling Xiao sincerely. Today, Saint, you saved my life. There are some things I don't want to hide from you, so as not to cause you unnecessary trouble. At this point, Qin Shu no longer had any worries. Ling Xiao was right. Sword cultivators were not good at lying. Otherwise, it would be detrimental to their Dao hearts. Of course, he would never have imagined that there were sword cultivators in this world who didn't need to cultivate and could directly plunder the sword Dao laws of others. F***CK. Oh, Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows and looked at Qin Shu with interest. Little leak, I haven't even started to trick you, and you're already coming clean? Should I say that you are naive? Or should I praise my own acting skills? Holy Son, I came from a demonic sect and cultivated demonic arts. This is the first time I've entered the world. Qin Shu has never killed the innocent, nor have I done anything to disappoint Jinshin. Qin Shu took a deep breath, put his hands together, and pointed to the sky. I, Qin Shu, swear on my sword heart that if I lie in any of my words, Let my soul scatter and never enter the cycle of reincarnation. Demons are carefree and don't like to be restrained. Throughout history, the famous demon lords and demon lords weren't all murderers. Ling Zhao's expression was calm, as if he wasn't surprised by Qin Chu's demonic body. I heard that in the prehistoric times, there was a white-haired demon lord who once killed his family and himself. He defeated the heavens in one battle, and his soul returned to the Tai Ching sect. Such a demon deserves to be revered by all generations. What? Holy Sun. Qin Chu froze on the spot and didn't speak for a long time. Finally, a sincere smile bloomed on his face. What did I say? I've already said that the Lingxiao saint and I will definitely become like-minded and bosom friends. Listen, the Holy Sun was able to say such touching words. How could he be restrained by the Holy Church? Yes, the world said that the Holy Church had reached a point where they couldn't tolerate demons. But Holy Sun Ling Xiao was different from the world. Such a person should stand at the top of the world and command all the worlds. No, I must fight against the heavens with Holy Sun Ling Xiao, reverse the world, and become a legend for all eternity. Beep. The destined sun overthought and showed signs of death. Congratulations to the host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Now I'm just the Holy Son of the Holy Church and can't change the world's prejudice. I hope that Brother Qin can be a good demon in the future and become a role model for the world. I believe that a senior who can teach a disciple like Brother Qin can't be an ordinary demon. I wonder if I'll have a chance to meet that senior in the future. Ling Xiao sighed, and Qin Chu's face showed a touch of pride. Yes, my 6 masters are all carefree people. If Holy Sun wants, I can take you back to the mountain village to meet them. But Qin Chu suddenly smiled bitterly. Forget it. Let's wait for a while. I'll go back and tell them, and then I'll ask Holy Sun to visit them. My 6 masters have always been hostile to the Holy Church. 6 masters? Ling Xiao pretended to be surprised. Brother Qin, your 6 masters can't be the 7 demons who once dominated the Xingzhou, right? Qin demon, chess demon, saber demon, book demon. Seniors? Holy Sun, you know our masters' names? At this moment, Qin Chu's face became more and more surprised. However, Ling Xiao suddenly nodded with a gloomy expression. More than that, if you're really the disciple of the 6 demons, then you should know Saber demon, saber wooming, right? Of course. It's just that Saber Master has been dead for many years. Back then, it was your holy church. There are some things that I can't tell you now. It won't be too late to tell you when I meet the 6 senior demons in the future. Brother Qin, stay here with peace of mind. I'll find the real culprit who killed the 8 young masters as soon as possible and clear your name. Ling Xiao looked at Qin Chu meaningfully. Qin Chu looked like he wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't ask. There was a secret. There was a secret in Ling Xiao's expression. No wonder the Holy Master had said that not everyone in the Holy Church was sanctimonious. Although the Divine Master was domineering and powerful, there were still people in the Holy Church who were worthy of respect. Could it be that the Holy Sun Ling Xiao was also an old friend of the 6 masters? But how old was he? It seemed that he had to inform his masters as soon as possible and find a time to meet them. After Ling Xiao's figure disappeared, Qin Chu took out a voice transmission talisman, quietly walked to a corner, and lit it up. Holy Master, it's Chu-er. Chu-er, what happened? Soon, when Ruyu's voice came from the other end of the voice transmission talisman. Holy Master, I met a young master who is the Holy Son of the Holy Church. He seems to know Saber Master. Holy Master, Chua, where are you? I'm in the immortal mystic sect. Today, someone deliberately tried to harm me. If it wasn't for the Holy Sun Ling Xiao, I'm afraid I would have died. Even that great elder Ling Xiao threatened to kill me. Holy Master, Holy Sun Ling Xiao wants to see you. Qin Chu said truthfully, but the great demon fell into silence again. After a while, he said in a deep voice, don't talk too much with him for now. I need to discuss with your other masters before making a decision. Yes, Holy Master. Chapter 647. The ancient village on Green Mountain was covered by clouds and spiritual light. The great demon stood with his hands behind his back, looking coldly at the ancient painting hanging on the wall. At this moment, there was a rare tenderness on his face. To be honest, when Qin Chu mentioned the Saint of the Saint, he felt that there was something fishy going on, but he couldn't figure it out. If Ling Xiao was really the Saint of the Saint and Chuer fell into his hands, he must have a way to pry open his soul and investigate everything. But not only did he not do that, but he also saved Chu-er's life and deliberately mentioned the saber demon. When the saber demon died, a wisp of his remnant soul was still there. When Ryu had guessed that he either escaped or fell into the hands of the saint, or the latter was more likely to happen, until a few days ago, when the last wisp of the saber demon's remnant soul was extinguished, when Ryu still felt uneasy. After all, the saber demon knew too many of their secrets. However, since the saint couldn't find Nanjiang, it meant that the saber demon didn't betray them and wasn't controlled by the divine master. At least, not in the past 100 years. But the saint of the saint suddenly came here. Could it be related to this matter? In the past 100 years, when Ryu missed the woman in the painting all the time, although he knew that meeting the saint of the saint was a great risk. With the divine master's ruthlessness, this was very likely a way to lure the snake out of its hole. But he didn't want to miss any opportunity to know about Miss Yi. Therefore, he decided that he would meet the holy son of the sacred sect alone. At the same time, he would meet Feng Yuanyang. You dare to kill Ryu's disciple? Is it because I can't hold the saber, or is it because you, the first elder of the immortal mystic sect, have you become arrogant? Ah, a person's heart would indeed change. Finally, when Ryu picked up a pen and paper, left a message, and disappeared. In the main hall, Ling Xiao was hidden in the void, coldly looking down at Qin Chu with a trace of a smile on his face. He had expected that this disciple of the 6 demons would definitely send a message to the great demons. However, from the great demon's words, he was very cautious. However, now that Qin Chu was in his hands, even if the great demon was wary of the saint's sect and didn't care about the dead saber demon. However, Qin Chu was their only hope for the past 100 years. If he died, all their efforts would be in vain. Therefore, Ling Xiao guessed that the great demon would most likely appear in front of him with another identity. Naturally, a gambler's gaze would not be limited to just one piece. Qin Chu's role was probably equivalent to a bait. This was an open conspiracy, when Ryu had no other choice. Immortal Mystic Sect, 7th Peak. Phoenix Rouge sat upright and looked at Qin Shan coldly. Little junior brother, tell me all the details of your encounter with that witch. Although Phoenix Rouge felt that this ordinary junior brother seemed to be a destined person, she had also found out about Gooseker's identity. However, the more she interacted with Ling Xiao, the more she didn't feel close to him. Instead, she felt even more fearful of him. That young man was calm and ruthless. He seemed gentle and refined, but Phoenix Rouge always inadvertently saw the evil in him. She was getting more and more confused. She realized that she couldn't see through Ling Xiao at all. He didn't seem like a destined person. He was more like a villain who could kill the destined person. Senior sister, can you stop calling her a witch? Actually, I realized that demonic cultivators aren't necessarily bad people, Qin Shan muttered softly. However, Phoenix Rouge suddenly raised her hand, scaring him into taking a few steps back. I'll talk, sir. And I met at the nether stream in the Wangui mountain. Hearing Qin Shan's emotional speech, Phoenix Rouge's originally tense heartstrings gradually relaxed. So, what you mean is that when the two of you were trapped in the nether stream, you were already doomed. However, you accidentally found the inheritance of a great demon? Yes, but I'm not interested in that inheritance. Senior sister, don't worry. I know my own identity. Qin Shan nodded with a serious expression. The delicate and fair face of a young girl gradually appeared in his mind. So, what you mean is that Gu Si accepted the inheritance of that ancient great demon and opened the ruins. That's why the two of you were able to escape danger? Phoenix Rouge nodded slightly. It couldn't be wrong. These two ants fell into the place where the ancient great demon had fallen. Not only did they not die, but they also obtained the inheritance. If one said that the two of them didn't have luck, would one believe it? Moreover, since ancient times, if a righteous disciple fell in love with a demonic girl, that disciple would most likely become a demon. As for that demonic girl, she would most likely die. However, how could she cleverly make the two of them fight Ling Xiao? Phoenix Rouge fell into deep thought. Goosey Eye had most likely fallen into the trap. Next, it was time to test her acting skills. Senior sister? Senior sister? When Chun Xing Shan's voice reached her ears, Phoenix Rouge frowned and looked coldly at the young man in front of her. Little junior brother, don't tell me you're still hiding some secret from me? Senior sister. Chun Xing Shan's eyes flashed with a hint of panic. Phoenix Rouge's heart suddenly trembled. As expected, this little bastard was indeed hiding secrets. Senior sister, I have a secret. I don't know if I should tell you. I've already told you about the poison technique that I'm cultivating. What are you still worried about? Phoenix Rouge guided Chun Xing Shan. It was a trap. Of course, one had to understand it thoroughly in order to set it up ingeniously. How could the chosen one not have a cheat? I realize that this golden rod of mine can suck blood. Phoenix Rouge lowered her head and looked at the golden rod tightly held in Chun Xing Shan's hand. She pondered for a moment. How did you discover it? That day in the Netherworld stream, there were many demonic beasts. With and my cultivation level, we were no match for those demonic beasts, but Chun Xing Shan's eyes flashed with fear. It was obvious that what happened that day had left a shadow in his heart. Actually, ever since he returned to the mountain, Chun Xing Shan had thought of throwing the golden rod away. However, no matter where he threw it, he would always see it next to his pillow the next day when he woke up. In the end, Chun Xing Shan gave up. Moreover, this golden rod only acted a little strangely when he was on the brink of death. Normally, it was just an ordinary spiritual treasure. Even his master did not notice it. It would be even more difficult for others to notice it. I see. Phoenix Rouge's beautiful face suddenly bloomed with a radiant smile. Then, she took out a heaven-earth bag and took out a few pills. She handed them to Chun Xing Shan, and her expression became inexplicably serious. Junior brother, I used to teach you not to fight with others because I was worried that you would get hurt. However, this battle for the Heavenly Lake is the time for us to fight for the dignity of the seventh peak and our master. I don't want to be looked down upon again, and I don't want our master to be looked down upon again. So, Phoenix Rouge took a deep breath. Let's fight for the glory of the seventh peak together. Chapter 648. Senior sister? Chun Xing Shan looked at Phoenix Rouge in surprise. His eyes were filled with confusion. What's wrong with senior sister today? Did she take the wrong medicine? Junior brother, I understand now. On the path to immortality, we should fight with the heavens, the earth, and the people. As long as we can get a chance to enter the heavenly lake, Master might be happy and will not stop you and from being together. As a transmigrator, wasn't tricking a 15-year-old boy a basic skill? As expected, Chun Xing Shan's eyes lit up when he heard, Senior sister, is it true? Master will really allow it. How would you know if you don't try? These pills are called strength pills. Your cultivation is still low, so it won't be easy for you to break out of the encirclement. Don't worry. If you meet someone you can't defeat, just eat one. I have plenty of them here. Thank you, senior sister. Chun Xing Shan bowed, turned around, and skipped out of the courtyard. When the boy was far away, Phoenix Rouge's eyes flashed with coldness. That pill could indeed increase one's strength, but it had a side effect. It would make the person crazy and lose their mind. Previously, she used Chun Xing Shan's tone to send a letter to Gu Xie in the Thousand Ghost Mountain, saying that a demon had appeared in the immortal mystic sect. He felt uneasy and wanted to get rid of the sect's restrictions to go down the mountain to look for her. If that girl was really tempted, she would definitely come to the immortal mystic sect and take Chun Qin Shan away. At that time, she would definitely not come alone. There would definitely be experts following her from the Thousand Ghost Mountain. The Thousand Ghost Mountain was now the leader of the southern border's demon sections. Their leader was called Guzhan. Do you understand? Ling Xiao, as the saint of the sacred sect, must kill any demon he sees. In this way, Feng Rouge only needed to secretly push him, and she would be able to make him fight that young girl from the devil sect. Junior brother, don't blame me. With your model, your girlfriend will definitely die. It's the same no matter who kills her. I hope you won't disappoint me. I don't want to either. It's just that Ling Xiao's identity is really making me unable to eat or sleep in peace. A night passed in the blink of an eye. As dawn descended, the originally silent, immortal mystic sect instantly became lively. In front of the hall at the top of the mountain, there were countless green stone battle platforms. To the people of the southern border, today was an extremely solemn day. The human race would select geniuses and battle the geniuses of the sea region. In the end, they would be qualified to enter the heavenly lake. This was a good fortune, but it was also a special honor. At the end of the day, those who were not of the same race were natural enemies. Especially the various tribes of the Southern Territory, they were frequently harassed by the Oceanic clans, and all of them had resentment in their hearts. On the battle stage, life and death were determined by fate. Killing him would not form any karma. On the square, the celestial mystic sect master, Hellion Shan, as well as a group of celestial sect elders and peak lords, sat upright and still, looking at the distant battle stage. There were a total of 200 human disciples participating in the Heavenly Lake contest. There were 4 rounds in total. The corresponding opponents will be decided by drawing lots. At the same time, Ling Xiao walked out of the hall and looked up at the sky. The bright sun hung high in the blue sky. However, for some reason, a layer of dark clouds gathered under the sunlight. It seems that today's competition won't be very peaceful. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. His eyes were clear as he turned to look at Qin Chu. You too, look after young Master Qin. Yes, young master. Han Qin Xiu and Hua Hua nodded slightly and glared at Qin Chu. If it weren't for him, they would be able to follow young master to watch this grand event of the southern border. However, Qin Chu was not one of them, so Ling Xiao naturally would not let him know the secret of the realm. It was safer to stay in the hall with Han Qin Xiu and Hua Hua guarding. Moreover, as long as Ling Xiao obtained the so-called Heavenly Lake quota, it would be easy for him to bring anyone in. Lord Ling Xiao, I wish you to soar to the sky and be as high as the heavens. Qin Chu looked a little disappointed. Today was supposed to be the day he became famous in the southern border. However, he was framed by someone and was confined to this place. However, it was not important. Now that young master and I know each other, I don't care about the fortune of the Heavenly Lake and the reputation of the world. Buzz. However, just as Ling Xiao took a step forward and was about to walk towards the square, the Divine Master's holy token in his soul suddenly buzzed. Ling Xiao narrowed his eyes and instantly appeared in the realm. Then he took out the divine token. Where's the saint now? A deep and solemn voice came from the token. Ling Xiao's face inexplicably showed a trace of confusion. Why did this voice sound so familiar? Immortal mystic sect. I have already entered the sea and am investigating the traces of the Sea Emperor. If you need anything, you can call me back at any time. So it's the first divine envoy. A figure with a golden mask appeared in front of Ling Xiao's eyes. To be honest, among the 4 divine envoys of the Saint sect, the only one that Ling Xiao was afraid of was the first divine envoy, because he was simply too mysterious. He was so mysterious that even the other 3 divine envoys did not know his identity. The more secretive a person was, the bigger the secret he was hiding. No need. Divine envoy, you can investigate the sea tribe at ease. I have already seen the whereabouts of the great demon of southern border. If you appear now, you will alert the enemy. Okay, only when there was no more fluctuation from the token did Ling Xiao keep it in his soul, and appear at the peak of the immortal mystic mountain. But at this moment, his eyes were still filled with confusion. A very familiar voice. Where have I heard it before? A layer of immortal mist covered his face. Ling Xiao took a step forward and disappeared from the spot, regardless of who the mysterious first divine envoy was. After all, he would not appear in southern border for a while. In this way, Ling Xiao would have enough time to set up the chessboard and then surround and kill him. Boundless sea domain, thousands of miles away. A golden-robed figure stood in the depths of the sea domain with his hands behind his back. There was also a trace of confusion in his eyes. Why did the saint's voice sound so familiar? Immortal mystic sect in front of the main hall. Ling Xiao's figure descended from the sky. His white clothes were untainted, and his sleeves fluttered in the wind. Behind him, there seemed to be auspicious clouds floating in the sky. The sound of Tao could be heard. Tens of thousands of rays of light shot up into the sky, dispersing the layer of dark clouds under the bright sun. Look, it's the Saint Ling Xiao. The saint is so handsome. I really want to accompany the saint and travel the world. The saint is looking at me. The saint is looking at me. Beside Phoenix Rouge, a female immortal sect disciple was trembling. Her face was flushed red. In just an instant, she had reached the peak of her life. I can't take it anymore. The entire square was in jubilation because of Ling Xiao's arrival. In front of the main hall, Hellion Shan and the others stood upright and bowed. Greetings, Saint. Ma'am, let's begin. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. There was not a trace of arrogance on his face. Then, under the dumbfounded gazes of the immortal sect's powerhouses, he lifted his leg and walked toward the battle platform where the battle tokens were drawn. Saint, you. Hellion Shan's eyes narrowed. He looked surprised. My lord Saint, what are you trying to do? With your status, the Shengzhou belongs to your family. Is a mere opportunity in the heavenly lake worthy of you fighting for it? I'll directly give you the first place in the competition. Isn't it simple and happy? Damn. Chapter 649. I will participate in this competition and witness the glory of the southern border prodigies. Ling Xiao's tone was gentle, and his body was full of Taoist rhymes. There was a gust of wind in the mountains, and his white robes fluttered in the wind. He looked like an immortal, and there was an indescribable sense of transcendence. However, the moment Ling Xiao finished speaking, the entire square was filled with thunderous applause. Clap, clap, clap. Great! Saint, you are fair. Did you see that? This is our beloved Lord Holy Son. He could have been invincible with his identity, but he chose to prove himself in the fairest way. What is there to say? Lord Ling Xiao is righteous and righteous. He is indeed the light of the Shengzhou continent and the pillar of righteousness. However, God, please don't let me draw the saint. I am not afraid of losing. I just want to represent my race against the prodigies of the sea region. Damn! Sensing the awe in the eyes of the surrounding prodigies, Ling Xiao's lips curled into a smile. Reputation was something that could be accumulated over time. Everyone's words helped to build the young master's reputation. I, Ling Xiao, am the light of the Shengzhou continent, illuminating the land. Compared to the notoriety that the world couldn't tolerate, a villain naturally had to learn how to protect himself when he was outside. But at this moment, the elder in charge of drawing lots had a troubled expression on his face. Originally, Ling Xiao was not participating, and the 200 disciples were just enough to draw lots. However, with the addition of Ling Xiao, how were 201 disciples supposed to compete? Why don't we put an empty lot? Whoever draws, it will have a bye in the first round and the second round. They can compete in the third round. The two elders gathered together and discussed in a low voice. That makes sense. The disciples walked onto the platform one after another, drew lots, and then retreated to the edge of the square. Who is the disciple who drew the empty lot in the first round? One of the white-haired elders in green robes swept his gaze across the crowd and asked in a deep voice. The disciples looked at each other and shook their heads slightly as they looked at the number on the lot in their hands. Until A timid voice suddenly came from the crowd, instantly attracting everyone's attention. I think it's me. Chun Xin Shan looked up and raised the empty bamboo lot in his hand with a look of surprise. Hmm? Little junior brother. Beside him, Phoenix Rouge's eyes narrowed slightly, but the corners of his mouth curled up into a subtle smile. There was no mistake. If he wasn't the son of destiny, how could he have such good luck? 200 people drew lots, and only you got an empty lot. Junior brother. Bloom. F*CK. Isn't this the trash from the 7th summit? Chun Xin Shan? It's him. His luck is too heaven-defying. Lucky bastard. If it wasn't for the fact that we had a bye in the first round, I would have beaten the shit out of him. Oh, dare I ask, senior brother, what realm are you at? First grade, divine general. Hearing the discussion coming from the square, Ling Zhao's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. From the very beginning, he knew that Chun Xin Shan was a heavenly mandate. However, from the beginning to the end, he could not figure out who this model was. However, the scene in front of him was somewhat familiar. Long staff, trash, martial arts competition by. Have you thought of it? If that's the case, there might be a big change in today's martial arts competition. Ling Zhao's lips curled up into a smile as he suddenly had an idea. Originally, he was still thinking about how to harvest this little leek. However, when he thought of his model, Ling Zhao realized that this leek was far from mature. The celestial mystic sect was probably only the beginning of his immortal path. On the 10-direction battle platform, 20 people will fight in order. Remember, you're not allowed to deliberately kill others, but swords have no eyes. It's not a sin to die on the battle platform. The celestial mystic sect master, Helian Shan, shouted loudly. 10 elders stood on each of the 10-direction battle platforms. The southern border geniuses went up the battle platform according to the order of the lot. Ling Zhao looked at the lot in his hand and stepped out, instantly appearing on the 7th battle platform. Look, it's the son of Destiny Ling Zhao. Countless disciples gathered below the battle platform, waving flags and shouting, trying to attract the son of Destiny's attention. Damn, it can't be right. I'm actually so honored to fight the son of Destiny. In the crowd, a disciple wearing a long robe smiled bitterly. He stepped onto the battle platform and bowed to Ling Zhao. Son of Destiny, get ready. Ling Zhao nodded indifferently. However, the disciple suddenly shook his head. Son of Destiny, it's already my greatest honor to be able to see your immortal face at such a close distance. How would I dare to draw my sword against you? Son of Destiny, I have a presumptuous request. What's the matter? Ling Zhao smiled gently, giving people a feeling of a spring breeze. Can I ask you to give me an autograph? The celestial mystic sect disciple walked up to Ling Zhao and asked expectantly. I don't have a pen and paper. It's fine. Seeing that Ling Zhao agreed, the disciple suddenly took out a short dagger and stabbed it into his thigh. Young master, use this. Damn, shameless. Seeing this scene, waves of angry curses came from below the battle platform. In particular, some of the prides had a hint of jealousy in their eyes. In the end, when the celestial mystic sect disciple hopped off the battle platform, the battle had completely come to an end. Ling Zhao turned around and looked at Phoenix Rouge on the battle platform in the distance with a smile on his face. Junior Sister Rouge, I'm a disciple of the First Peak. My name is Zhu Dachong. I hope Junior Sister will show mercy. Shoo! Waves of boos came from below the battle platform. Senior Brother Zhu, are you having a battle or making friends? Shameless. I've never seen such a shameless person. Many disciples looked at the graceful figure in black standing on the battle platform with a hint of excitement in their eyes. Although Phoenix Rouge was the first disciple of the 7th Peak, she had never left the mountain in the past 10 years. Therefore, to ordinary disciples, this senior sister was not only mysterious, but also beautiful. There were bootlickers everywhere. Needless to say, bootlickers. However, Phoenix Rouge had no intention of competing. At this moment, She only wanted to quickly exchange a few blows with his senior brother Zhu and then pretend to be defeated so that she could report to her master. Staying out of the battle and watching the fire from the other side was the self-cultivation of a villain. Senior brother Zhu, get ready. Wait, junior sister, I heard that holy son Ling Xiao has been going to the 7th peak frequently these few days. Is this rumor true? At the mention of Ling Xiao, a hint of fear appeared on Zhu Dachang's face. Senior brother Zhu, if you don't get ready, I'm going to make a move. Phoenix Rouge frowned slightly, and her eyes were filled with annoyance. Zhu Dachang, you're still a Zhu Dachang. Look, holy son Ling Xiao is here. However, just as Phoenix Rouge was about to attack, there was a sudden commotion below the battle platform. Then, everyone saw a handsome silhouette in a white robe walking over from afar. On his peerless face, there was a faint smile. His eyes were warm and calm, revealing an inexplicable emotion. However, he was only looking at Phoenix Rouge from the beginning to the end. Gulp, junior sister phone. Be careful. On the battle platform, Zhu Dachang suddenly shouted angrily. He unsheathed the long sword in his hand and instantly shattered the void. Good timing. However, in the face of such an attack, Phoenix Rouge did not panic at all. Instead, there was a hint of mockery in her eyes. Finally, he could openly hide in the shadows. Chapter 650. Buzz. The sound of a sword resonated between heaven and earth. Everyone looked at the divine sword that slashed down from the sky with shock in their eyes. Zhu Dachang looked wretched, but his strength was not bad. He was an 8th-grade divine general. However, they did not know if junior sister Phoenix, who had never appeared before, could withstand this attack. Boom! Spiritual light flowed around Phoenix Rouge's body. It turned into a seal wheel and pressed down on the sword. However, just as Phoenix Rouge was about to vomit blood and pretend to be defeated, Poochie. However, senior brother Zhu was one step ahead of her and fell off the battle stage. What the F***CK? Phoenix Rouge's mouth opened slightly. After a long pause, she cursed under her breath. Shameless. Below the stage, many of the spectating disciples were also stunned. In the blink of an eye, they understood what happened. Senior brother Zhu is very dramatic. In the past few days, holy son Ling Xiao liked to visit the 7th peak whenever he had nothing to do. Even a blind person could tell that he was not there to look for that trash Chun-Ching Shan, let alone those with discerning eyes. Since Feng Ruge was someone that the Holy Sun had taken a liking to, if they were to hit her, wouldn't they offend the Holy Sun if they hurt her? If he did not fight, it would be too deliberate. Use the strongest attack and vomit the most blood. Senior brother Zhu Dachang, I am willing to call you the most wretched. At this moment, Ling Xiao looked at Zhu Dachang, who was crawling up from the ground, and a playful smile appeared on his face. He completely understood Phoenix Rouge's temperament. This woman of destiny always felt that she had transmigrated into the body of a villain. Therefore, her wretchedness was to avoid karma and cultivate in seclusion. However, if you hide on a mountain every day, what can I use to steal your luck and exploit your value? Come out and walk more. Who knows, maybe you will transmigrate back. Half a day passed in the blink of an eye. In the end, 101 disciples were left from the 201. The second round of drawing lots began. As expected, the disciple who was eliminated was still Chun-Ching Shan. Suddenly, the entire square was filled with a clamor. Such luck was indeed something to be envious of. Only Ling Xiao and Phoenix Rouge remained calm. Those who were destined by the heavens were blessed by luck. Although Phoenix Rouge had more luck than Chun-Ching Shan, it was obvious that Chun-Ching Shan was the main character in the current dungeon storyline. Haha, junior brother Su Yunzi, your little disciple is quite lucky. Many immortal sect elders had mocking looks on their faces. They looked at the thin and weak figure standing in the square with disdain. A disciple who had not even reached the Pong stage had actually entered the second round of the martial art competition. If this news were to spread, wouldn't people laugh their heads off? Ling Zhao's opponent still surrendered without a fight. Most of the southern border geniuses in the immortal mystic sect had seen the scene of Ling Zhao slaying Qingyu. What a joke. This saint could even kill an ancient demon soul with a single strike. What do they have to compete with the saint? A doghead? Below the stage, Ling Zhao looked at Phoenix Rouge with a calm expression. This time, Phoenix Rouge had learned her lesson. Whenever the opponent attacked, she pretended to be defeated and flew out of the stage. But just as the immortal sect elder announced the start of the martial arts competition, a burly southern border genius was sent flying out without even making a move. What a terrifying method! Junior Sister Rouge can actually injure people with her aura. Poochie. Phoenix Rouge stood on the stage with a trace of blood at the corner of her mouth. F***CK. Are these people trying to make things difficult for me? I just want to be an outsider. Is it so difficult? As expected, as long as one had karma with the destined by the heavens, as a villain, their ending would be miserable. Perhaps the Heavenly Eye Lake was a fortune to the people of the world, but to Phoenix Rouge, it was a fatal abyss. And now, she seemed to be walking towards that abyss step by step. In the end, Phoenix Rouge took a deep look at Ling Zhao and retreated to the side. On the immortal Mystic Mountain, the martial arts competition was in full swing. However, in the forest at the foot of the mountain, countless figures suddenly walked out. The person in the lead was a middle-aged man in black. There was an obvious scar on his face, but it was covered with ghost tattoos, which made him look extremely ferocious. Beside him, 3 men and women in different clothes stood with their hands behind their backs. There was a touch of arrogance on their faces. Mountain Lord, your plan is brilliant. Among them, a middle-aged, beautiful woman in a red robe smiled charmingly. Her body was surrounded by a charming aura, which seemed to be able to turn all living things upside down. That's right. I'm afraid that old man Hellion would never dream that we would choose to attack the mountain at this time. Another dark-skinned old man in a green robe with a walking stick in his hand snorted coldly. His eyes were as sinister as a snake's. Haha, immortal mystic sect suppressed my demon sect for 100 years and killed countless of my disciples. Now that all 4 of us have gathered, we will definitely let that old man Hellion know our pain back then. The remaining white-robed middle-aged man had a gentle expression, but his words were filled with strong resentment. The 3 of you, we will have to rely on you to attack immortal mystic sect this time. The black-robed man smiled faintly. His eyes were deep, and there seemed to be ghostly intent flowing between them. Mountain Lord, what are you saying? Immortal mystic sect destroyed my demon sect and killed my disciples, causing us to live in seclusion for 100 years. Thanks to Mountain Lord's great talent and vision, we were able to revive the demon sect. Now that we have joined forces to destroy immortal mystic sect, it can be considered as taking revenge for the tens of thousands of disciples of demon sect. The demon god will bless us. The green-robed old man smiled sinisterly. Destroying immortal mystic sect was fake, but seizing the Heavenly Eye Lake's fortune was real. Currently, their cultivations had all reached a bottleneck. If they could take this opportunity to step out of the shackles, even if the Saints sect wanted to find them, it would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. As for the life and death of ordinary disciples, who would care? We don't have much time. When the sun sets, we will attack immortal mystic sect. Then, we will occupy the Heavenly Eye Lake for 3 days. When the Sea Clan descends, or the Saint sect notices, we will have already returned to the old side of the sect. I am afraid that even if the Divine Envoy comes personally, it will be difficult for him to break the great sect protecting array of Netherworld Stream. The Thousand Ghost Mountain Lord nodded and smiled. He attacked Immortal Mystic Mountain not only for the fortune of Heavenly Eye Lake. There is a more important reason. A few days ago, a disciple of Thousand Ghost Mountain suddenly sent a letter to Gusa. This plan was planned by the Thousand Ghost Mountain's young master, Gusa. Based on his understanding of his daughter, what she really cared about was the righteous disciple who fell into the demon stream with her a few days ago. It seemed like his name was Chun Qing Shan. Of course, as the master of a sect, Thousand Ghost Mountain Lord Guzhun was not a person who would act based on his emotions. He had another reason for attacking Immortal Mystic Mountain. Guzhun's cultivation had already reached the peak of 7th grade Divine Emperor. However, the drawbacks of demon path cultivation techniques were undoubtedly revealed at this moment. The faster one's cultivation increased, the more terrifying the bottleneck. If one wanted to step into the 8th grade Divine Emperor realm, it would be an extravagant hope to rely solely on the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Therefore, in these years, he had cultivated another demon path cultivation technique. The Thousand Ghost Mountains Taboo Cultivation Technique, Blood Demon Heaven Devouring Technique. Since this cultivation technique was regarded as a taboo by the demon path, one could imagine how cruel and tyrannical it was. It required thousands of blood souls to be devoured into one's body to become the sole ruler of the world. In these years, although Guzhun had secretly hunted down the cultivators of Southern Border, once the demon path cultivators appeared, they would definitely be surrounded and killed. Secondly, there were very few people in the southern region to begin with. Cultivating like this was really too slow. Therefore, he needed a massacre. No matter if the ones who died were disciples of the righteous path or demon path, the one who would benefit in the end would still be him. Although the saint of the sacred sect was currently on this immortal mountain, Guzhun had already found out that the divine envoy was not here. Therefore, even if he had to bear some risks, he could not miss this opportunity. When his cultivation reached the 8th grade Divine Emperor realm, even if the divine envoy came personally, it would definitely be difficult to kill him. As for the life and death of ordinary disciples, as long as he did not die, Thousand Ghost Mountain would not be destroyed. Chapter 651. The Gone Heaven Divine Sect was the largest demonic sect in the Shenzhou. There were 4 altars, 5 halls, and 7 gates. However, how could the holy sect allow the demonic sect to exist when they were in control of the world? The arrival of the 4 divine envoys, together with the immortal mystic sect, swept through the southern border and killed close to 100,000 devil Dao disciples. Only then was the southern border's devil Dao completely destroyed. However, Centipede dies but never falls down. Although the demonic cult had been destroyed, there were still a few demonic Dao experts who managed to escape. They hid in the sea and secretly accumulated strength, waiting for an opportunity to rise again. The 4 leaders of the demonic sects were originally the masters of 3 halls and 1 faction. However, with the destruction of the demonic sect, the 4 of them naturally could no longer stay in the same sect. Each of them roped in their own disciples and established their own forces. Among them, Guzhun's Myriad Ghost Mountain was the most prestigious. It was currently the largest Devil Dao force in the southern border. Therefore, Guzhun was in charge of today's attack. As for the remaining 3 people, the old man was the poison sex master, Bai Duzi. The beautiful middle-aged woman was the Charm Valley's master, Hua Yoji. The scholar was the Blood Moon Tower's master, Zhang Jin. Tens of thousands of disciples from the 4 great devil sects gathered here, all for the sake of uprooting the immortal mystic sect, wiping away their previous humiliation. Of course, the 4 leaders of the demon sects each had their own thoughts. Guzhun was there for the hundreds of thousands of blood spirits on the mountain and at the foot of the mountain to cultivate devilish arts. As for the other 3, they all coveted the fortune of the heavenly lake and the foundation of the celestial sect. As for the vengeance of the demonic sect and the humiliation they had suffered in the past, it was just to trick their disciples into giving up their lives. Everyone, rest for a moment and wait for my command. Guing put his hands behind his back and looked in the direction of the mountain peak. There were waves of spiritual power and auspicious clouds there. It was obvious that this martial art competition was at its climax. Mountain Lord, don't forget what you promised me. At this moment, a young girl in blue suddenly walked out from behind Guzhun. Her face was fair, and her beauty was picturesque. However, Her bright eyes revealed a faint trace of coldness. "Don't worry. If that disciple has the intention to join my sect, I will personally take him as my disciple and guide him carefully." Guing nodded and chuckled. She opened a piece of golden paper in her hand, which detailed the locations of several array formations in the immortal mystic sect. This piece of paper, along with the letter, was sent to the Thousand Ghost Mountain by the Phoenix Rouge. After all, if one wanted to kill a destined person, one had to pay a price. How many people from immortal mystic sect died? What did that have to do with her? As long as Ling Xiao, the holy son of the sacred sect, died, the karma between the two of them would be severed. Most likely, no one in the southern region would care about her, the poison woman, anymore. The world was vast. She just needed to find another place to hide. Furthermore, even if Chun Qingshan later asked about the Devil Sect attack on the mountain, she had already thought of an excuse. Immortal Mystic Sect was the leader of Southern Border's righteous path. The spirit treasure in little junior brother's hand was strange. Once it was exposed, he would definitely be killed. Now that she had fallen in love with a disciple of the Devil Sect, she would most likely end up in a situation where the world would not tolerate her. As a senior apprentice sister, she didn't care about the life and death of the others in the immortal sect. But, little junior apprentice brother, I will not allow you to be killed. Of course, I only wanted to ask sir to come here and secretly take you out of the mountain. Who would have thought that she would lead a group of people to attack the mountain? Pucci. As such, this chess game could be said to be perfect. Even if Ling Xiao was terrifyingly talented and had an invincible aura, he definitely wouldn't have thought that she would dare to use the entire immortal mystic sect as the price to lead the devil up the mountain and slaughter her fellow disciples. As such, chaos had already arisen. Even if Ling Xiao was blessed with providence, don't forget that he was also a person blessed by the heavens. Only by borrowing his hand to kill the holy son of the sacred sect and sever the karma would there be no more changes to her immortal path. Everything was for the sake of survival. How could a transmigrator have so many emotions? Gusiker bowed slightly and looked into the distance. In her mind, a young, determined, and even somewhat foolish face gradually appeared. That day, she led the disciples of the Thousand Ghost Mountain to ambush the righteous paths, people who came to eliminate the Devil Sect. Unexpectedly, she accidentally fell into the Netherworld mountain stream with Chun Qingshan and fell into a dead end, especially when Gu Xiai slipped and fell off the cliff. That little disciple of the immortal sect suddenly stretched out his hand and wanted to pull her up. Unexpectedly, he was also pulled into the stream by her. However, the fake and disgusting disciple of the righteous faction in her eyes didn't take her life while she was heavily injured. Even if his cultivation was low like an ant, Gusaer's bones were already shattered. As long as Chun Qingshan wanted to, he could easily kill her with his hands. However, Gusier never dreamed that this little disciple of the immortal mystic sect not only didn't kill her, but also took off his clothes when the demonic beasts in the mountain stream surrounded them. To be honest, at that time, Gusier was already prepared to shatter her divine soul and commit suicide on the spot. However, something she didn't expect even more happened. Facing several demonic beasts of the Paong realm, that young man actually carried her on his back and used a long robe to tie their bodies together. Then, he took out a spiritual treasure and fled into the depths of the mountain stream. For the first time in her life, Gu Sicker had such intimate contact with a man. The warmth from her skin made her feel limp and numb. However, Chun Qingshan's cultivation was low and the netherworld stream was filled with ghost chi. In the end, the two of them were blocked by the demonic beasts in a deep valley of the mountain stream. At the critical moment, the pure gold-long rod in Chun Qingshan's hand suddenly showed its power. When a Paong realm great demonic beast pounced over, it sucked out all of its blood essence and turned it into a pile of bones. From that moment on, Gu Xier realized that she seemed to have underestimated this little disciple of the immortal sect. However, sucking out blood essence was definitely not something a righteous faction person would do. What made Gu Xi even more confused was that Chun Qingshan's face was also filled with shock at that time. He even wanted to throw away that spiritual treasure. Under the netherworld stream, there were countless demonic beasts. Most of them were demonic beasts that had their minds corroded by ghost qi. Therefore, even if the spiritual treasure in Chun Qingshan's hand was terrifying, the two of them still couldn't see any chance of survival until they accidentally entered an ancient hall in the deepest part of the netherworld stream. That place was actually the tomb of a peak expert of the Gone Sky divine sect. The two of them stayed together for a few days. Gu Xi's injuries gradually recovered. Chun Qingshan was proud of his identity and did not covet the inheritance of the ruins. However, Gu Xi laughed at him for being pedantic and promised him the identity of the young master of the Thousand Ghost Mountain. She told him not to return to the immortal sect and enter the Ghost Mountain. However, Chun Qingshan sternly rejected her. When Gu Xi received the inheritance in the palace, the two of them discovered the hidden passageway and escaped with their lives. Originally, Gu Xi did not think that she would like this silly disciple of the righteous faction. At most, she felt grateful. However, ever since the two of them separated, she would occasionally think of the skinny figure that carried her on his back and fled. She missed him so much that she could not bear to look back. For the first time in 20 years, Gu Xi understood what it meant to miss someone deeply. Just when she wanted to sneak into the immortal sect to look for Chun Qingshan, she unexpectedly received that letter. In the letter was Chun Qingshan's tone. He said that the saint had arrived and was very suspicious of him. Now that he wanted to leave the immortal sect, he was bound by the rules of the immortal sect. Although Gu Xi felt that the letter was strange, she still decided to persuade her father to attack the immortal sect. After all, Chun Qingshan would most likely participate in the battle of the Heavenly Lake. Once he exposed the strange power of the spiritual treasure, he would definitely be consigned to eternal damnation. She did not care about the immortal sect, the devil sect, or the thousands of disciples. However, only that silly disciple of the immortal mystic sect could not die. Moreover, Chun Qingshan, since you're not willing to join the devil sect, I will not allow you to join the righteous faction, colluding with the demonic woman to attack the immortal sect. This crime is enough for you to abandon the light and join the dark side. Gu Xi's eyes flashed with a hint of craftiness. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.